to Previously on X-Men. That's you, Eric.
Right, you start it and then I continue. The podcast that looks back on X-Men comics, movies, shows, characters, and more. And you can find more about the show and others like it at our network's website, radiomeanwhile.com. Share your thoughts on this and upcoming episodes by following us on Facebook and Twitter at Previously on X. And please rate, subscribe, and share the show on iTunes, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcast. I'm Eric Mickles, known online as Dusk vs. Tweak, and with me is my co-host...
Hilary Gunning. I guess it has been a while since we've recorded.
And I'm always having to remember which podcast I'm recording.
Oh my god.
But I'm always Eric Mickles, so that doesn't change. Show.
You're right.
So.
You're absolutely right. Hey, let me know if you can hear me slurping my tea.
No, I couldn't.
Well, that's good.
Wow, that was interesting. Okay. Today we're talking about the 2017 film Logan. It doesn't feel that long ago, and yet it was forever ago.
Back when we could sit and watch a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I saw it in theaters. I mean, obviously you must have seen it in theaters.
Hilary.
Did we see it together?
No. We never saw an X-Men film together in our lives.
Is that true?
That's very true.
Weird.
Yeah. I've babysat so you could see X-Men movies.
That's right.
But no, we've never...
That's the reason.
But yes, if we're talking Logan 2017, gosh, this one actually, I don't have too many notes on the production because it seems like, surprisingly, for a Fox film, pretty smooth sailing.
Yeah, well, in general, it feels quite different from the togetherness of it. Feels a little next level for the other movies.
So... talks of a third Wolverine film were obviously started soon after The Wolverine in 2013. I don't remember any other director except for James Mangold being talked about it, so I assume everyone involved seemed very happy with The Wolverine and his performance when it came out.
Okay.
Because he's the director of that one, so it didn't blow up the box office, but I guess everyone was just happy. After X-Men Origins, I think they would have been happy with almost anything at that point. And then to get The Wolverine. So Mangold was, as far as I know, attached the whole time. And then it was probably just one day all right, we signed the papers, it's official. Hugh Jackman was... The Wolverine and Days of Future Past, I think, were the end of his contract. Maybe even just The Wolverine. So he was a little I'm coming back, but we have to do renegotiations and everything. I don't think anyone ever thought Hugh Jackman wasn't coming back to do another one. Yeah. But he was not shy about the third Wolverine movie being his last Wolverine movie. Mm-hmm. That was pretty
I think that's a good call to have a solid end point.
Mm-hmm. He was also not shy about wanting to do an old man Logan story. That seemed always what he was pitching for the third one. And James Mangold pitched Logan as a bloody Little Miss Sunshine.
I think I can see what he means.
It's a road trip. It's a disgruntled family road trip.
It doesn't have the level of kind of surreal, nonsensical
stuff. Yeah, it's not a Wes Anderson wannabe kind of situation here. My apologies. That was dismissive of Little Miss Sunshine. So in 2013, Hugh Jackman told SFX magazine, "I haven't signed on. I'm generally at the point where unless it's better than the last one, I'm not going to do it. I think it has to be better. I can still see where we can improve on the last one. I love the intimacy of that story." He's talking about the Wolverine in this. "I love the intimacy of that story. I like the small stuff. I like that it was a little unexpected. I don't want to get into specifics because it just upsets people, but there are certain parts of that story where I felt we were a bit predictable, and I don't think you need to do that with Wolverine." So those are his thoughts on the Wolverine.
I'm interested that all of this so far is sort of referencing the previous Wolverine movies and we're gonna do another Wolverine movie, a third of those, and it's just so starkly different in style and tone. I'm really interested that they even when I go into this movie, I think of it as just a completely standalone in the universe, but I don't think of it as a third Wolverine movie or anything like that.
Sure. The Wolverine itself had some Western trappings, the Old West kind of trappings with this, with him going into that other country and everything and being a lone gunslinger. But they are, yes, I think the rating has a big part to do with that. I mean, James Mangold he did 3:10 to Yuma, and you watch his other films and they all kind of have this guy likes Westerns feel.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
On being ready to sign off as Wolverine, Hugh Jackman was talking on Live with Kelly and Michael, and he said, I was having a chat with Jerry Seinfeld about a year ago at his birthday, and he was talking about why he finished Seinfeld. He just said he always had the feeling and belief that you never know when either your energy or the audience's energy is going to dip over into people saying, oh, please go.
Yep.
It was Jerry Seinfeld who convinced Hugh Jackman.
That makes perfect sense.
What's the deal with Wolverine? He doesn't age, but he ages. Is he old? I don't know. That's it.
It was okay.
Yeah, I didn't have a bit planned, and I wrote these notes. Is it an X or is it a 10?
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Patrick Stewart was brought on around 2015, and that was something I think was kind of surprising to me when they announced that he was coming back.
Yeah.
Always kind of figured they were doing the last Wolverine, they were doing Old Man Logan, but then when they were like, Patrick Stewart's going to be in the movie, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, well, that adds to the feeling to me of it almost being like a what if kind of a thing. Like, it doesn't necessarily feel like, I don't think it's not like in the actual trajectory of the timeline, but it doesn't feel like it has to be. It feels kind of like a jaunt to the side.
It's very confusing if you try to officially timeline it. So Patrick Stewart was 76 at the time of filming, and he was still like covered in makeup to look older. In fact, because he's supposed to be 90 in this movie, so makeup artist Joel Harlow said there's a lot of makeup on him that you can't pick out because hopefully it's very real, but it's those subtleties that happen as we get older, thinning of the skin, more subdermal spots and discoloration, and hair takes over your ears and eyebrows. So I was adding one hair at a time to Patrick's eyebrows and ears, but you might miss it if you don't know it was there. So Patrick Stewart, 76 years old, and like, no, he needs to look old, please.
No, older.
Daphne Keane had been in 7 episodes of The Refugees 2 years prior, but Logan is considered to be her debut role at age 11 as Lara. Yeah, about the rating, about the R rating. I saw some stuff, they like to say that this was always considered to be an R-rated film even before Deadpool was a box office success. You know, maybe that's just something they'd like to say. Maybe it's true. Maybe
what's the production order? Like, how close were they?
I mean, Deadpool came out in 2016, so they could have been. They could have been filming. I don't know. I really don't know. It does seem like if you're doing that, yeah, all right, I'll believe him now. Now that you.
Well, yeah, because it feels all of the R elements feel very organic and integrated to the film. So.
James Mangold says of the R rating, and we talked about it a little bit, but the Wolverine had to be edited down a bit to not be R-rated.
Oh, yeah.
But with this film, he says, you have to have a slightly off-pedal goal for your film and the people who are going to go, what the F is this 8-minute scene between Professor X and Logan? That's light 8 minutes of 2 guys in there in a tank talking. And it's like, yeah, that's not going to change because of the vibe of this movie is an adult drama. That's why, for instance, we wanted an R rating. It wasn't because of the violence and it wasn't because of the language, but because I didn't have to write a movie, and neither did My Compatriots, for 11-year-olds. If we had a rated R movie, there was going to be no Happy Meals. There were going to be no action figures. There was going to be no marketing on Saturday morning cartoons or anything like that. So suddenly, you're not making a movie written for somebody under 14, 15, and that changes the length of scenes. It changes what you're talking about.
Wow, that's really interesting.
James Mangold often says things I agree with in a way that makes me want to punch him in the face.
Yeah, that was extensive.
He has a very obnoxious way of saying things that we can all agree with, but afterwards you're like, you're a dick. I listened to it was a podcast where he was talking about just the movie, and a lot of times he's just like, I just didn't effing care. I'm like, oh, you're so cool, James Mangold. Marco Beltrami is back from The Wolverine as composer, and I thought it was interesting because it's the same composer, but I did not pick up on any continuations of like musical cues.
No, so, it felt very.
Thought was interesting because there are elements in the Wolverine that sound like they're also coming out of the Western, but just to bring them over.
True. That's true. I guess it felt a little more, it feels almost like a different style of Western, you know? Which probably goes with what he was saying about the rating.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get it. Yes, if you're an R-rated film, then you can have these long conversations about just like feeling the emotion of a scene and like aging and mortality, and you don't have to then be like, oh no, the wall just exploded. But then when you say like, oh, I didn't have to write for 11-year-olds, it's like, okay, James Mangold, The movie was released on March 3rd, 2017, less than a year after X-Men Apocalypse.
Okay.
So they were they were really cranking them out because you had Deadpool, and then a few months later you had Apocalypse. I mean, not even that. You had Days of Future Past, and then less than a year later, Deadpool. A few months after that, Apocalypse, and then less than a year, Logan.
That is fast.
But the Wolverine had been 4 years before, so it was still a pretty lengthy time between Wolverine films.
Mm-hmm.
And then after Logan, everything just started to snowball out of their control. They're like, oh no, what do we do? Logan has a lower budget than the Wolverine, but not by much. It costs somewhere between 100 and 120 million. It made 226 million in North America and 388 million internationally, to reach a total of 614 million worldwide on an R rating.
Seems pretty good.
Yeah, I know you don't like it when I compare it because then the Deadpool movies are there. So let's try to figure this out.
That's true.
So
That's true.
domestically, the 5th highest grossing X-Men movie, and that's if we're counting the 2 Deadpool movies.
Okay.
And worldwide, it is the 4th highest grossing X-Men movie. That's if you're counting the Deadpool movies. Honestly, you take out the Deadpool movies, Logan is 2nd and 3rd highest grossing movie in the X-Men franchise.
Wow. I guess I'm a little surprised by that because it still feels like almost indie to me. Like if you were going to go see one of the big X-Men movies, you wouldn't necessarily go see Logan.
I would never have expected the Wolverine series to have the trajectory that it had, both of quality and box office.
Yeah.
It's insane. But yeah, it's Deadpool 2, Deadpool, Days of Future Past, and then Logan for worldwide. So
wow.
It's also a little surprising because the Wolverine got a bump over its domestic release because it wasn't taking place in North America. But Logan is very much like a Western.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that interesting. But also, I mean, people show up when it's the last film. Even if they haven't enjoyed all the films, I think people usually show up for the last one. Its Rotten Tomatoes score at the time of recording is 93% for critics and 90% for audience.
That's pretty good.
Yes, it is. Hilary, do you remember seeing this movie? Do you remember when you saw it?
I do. You mean, no. I mean, I saw it in theaters, so whenever it was in theaters.
Okay. I think I saw it the Sunday after the Sunday of its opening weekend, and I went to like a 9 o'clock showing of it, and I was happy for that because it was kind of it had people in it, but it had like mostly adults. There were some teenagers in the back that were like talking and everything during the opening like claw scene, but then as things went on, they just kind of shut up, so that was nice too.
Let me tell you who was in the theater when I saw this movie.
Hugh Jackman?
Hugh Jackman was there! No, it was, I'm pretty sure it was pretty packed. And the problem, there was like a 3-year-old kid there, and he would make noise and stuff, but like it wasn't the noise that was bothering me. It was the constant reminder that there was a 3-year-old watching this movie, and it was very difficult. That's what I remember the most about the first time that I saw it, because I was just so distracted. I couldn't enjoy it because I was just so distressed by this child watching people being slaughtered. So that's my memory.
That's when you remember watching it. Okay.
First witness.
And then I watched it again some other time later. I don't even remember why I was in the mood. It might have been because I was playing The Last of Us for the first time, or I might have watched like Mad Max. And then I was like, I want another film like this. And so both times I was an emotional wreck after it. And then I watched it for this episode. This is an X-Men movie that I cannot just easily turn on and watch and be like, that was fun. All right, gonna go throughout my day now. Totally unaffected.
Do you want to have a segment now where you talk about your emotional reaction to this movie?
Yeah, I'll talk about the first time I had the emotional reaction. Do
you want me to hold your hand?
No, it's okay. You haven't really hit an emotional low until you're trying not to cry in the men's bathroom of a movie theater.
Oh, wow.
Because I didn't cry during the movie. It wasn't like the movie was going up like, oh, but like afterwards it had happened, and I could hear the man comes around playing in the end credits, and we were getting ready to leave, and I was like, I'm fine, and then I was not fine. And then the drive home, I was not fine. And that night, I wasn't fine. And I was like, what is happening? It was, there were tears. There were tears that were hitting on it, and definitely a lot of personal issues in that, and I get that. Like, this isn't a movie I'm like, you didn't cry at Logan, what's wrong with you? I mean, I had to talk about it with my therapist. Luckily, like, I was scheduled that Tuesday to talk about anything.
That's handy.
And
That's
Logan was
handy.
just the topic on hand.
What's just like the fact that it was the last one, or
It's everything. It's all of it. So, I mean, I've talked a lot on this podcast about how the X-Men movies have been very important to me, and like for me, a lot of my life kind of has its own trajectory, starting at 14 for a bunch of different reasons.
Yeah.
And that's when the first X-Men movie came out. So it was kind of this constant thing in my life. And Hugh Jackman as the Wolverine for 17 years at this point was a ridiculous constant in my life. In a life that I probably would say hadn't had a lot of constants. Sure, I'll say father figure on screen at times. I don't think I loved where my life was in 2017. I don't think I liked... A lot of things just hit, and so yes, Hugh Jackman bowing out of this, that was kind of sad. Like, oh wow, there goes a thing that has just been part of my life for 17 years on a regular basis that, you know, I could at least be like, well, I'll see another X-Men movie in a couple of years. Yeah. But also the mortality of it all. Just, I've always been somebody who's kind of like, what happens if I die ever? And so,
existential crisis.
Yeah, the existential mortality that this whole movie's about really got to me. And also the fact that, gosh, at 2017, how old? That was 3 years ago. I mean, I was 30. I was 30. I had just turned 30, which was also a very emotional birthday for me. And so a lot of stuff just happened. And so we'll talk about it, but I didn't want the character to die on the screen. That was a thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't love the idea that he's buried out in the wilderness in basically an unmarked grave, which also got me, in so far away. We're going to spoil this movie, everybody. That he's been buried so far away from anyone that he would consider, you know, friends and family. That got me. And also the fact that at this time I'm 30-something and I'm not an X-Men yet, and that had been
hasn't happened for you.
That had been a real drive for me. I just wanted to be an X-Men so bad, and here it was kind of feeling like this stuff was ending, and I still was an X-Men, and so I just got hit by a whole bunch of stuff. Sometimes
heavy stuff.
Sometimes this stuff comes out in different ways, but yeah, it was just kind of like here's a constant that is now just gone. Mm-hmm. And in a really, like, it isn't just like, oh, Daniel Craig is retiring as James Bond. I mean, it's just a very I'm also probably going to spoil Endgame, Avengers Endgame, for anybody who hasn't seen it.
Just as a side note?
As a side note, yeah, because I think it's comparable, and that's your final warning for Endgame, but with the fate of Tony Stark in that movie, it's emotional and it's sad, but, I mean, Hugh Jackman had played Wolverine for 8 years by the time Robert Downey Jr. even started. You know?
So who cares about Tony Stark?
It's not that. And I feel like he got, you know, just as many, maybe if not more, like, appearances as the role. But there's just, like, when you're doing something Hugh Jackman played Wolverine for as many years as Chris Claremont wrote the X-Men. You know, on and off. But it's a 17-year thing. So I just kind of feel like when I watched Endgame, I'm like, oh, that's sad. I don't want that to happen. But with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, it's just like, all right, let's change the subject for a little bit. We can talk about it as it happens.
Okay.
I'm looking at a picture of Logan and Hugh Jackman now. Listen, I've got a lot of affection for Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman is fine. He's
Wolverine. I know he's fine.
Nice,
honestly, seeing The Greatest Showman a year after, when I saw The Greatest Showman and Hugh Jackman's just on screen and he's just singing and dancing, I'm like, I'm glad he's okay. And he's having it. That was like kind of a cathartic movie. I'm like, well, it's okay. He's still having a good time.
That's Wolverine's heaven. Yeah. He dies and then he's in Greatest Showman.
But I think that's part of the thing. It wasn't just that he played the character for so long. He played it in a way that, like, was just so affecting to the audience that we wanted to keep seeing him play it.
Yeah.
And that it could affect people this long. You know, there's certain people that, you know, play a role for a while and you could take or leave it and you just like the consistency. But, like, you know, good luck to Marvel recasting. I
don't even know why they would bother. I really don't.
It seems like they want to we'll talk about this at the end. All right, the movie starts and there's no X. The X doesn't stay.
X. I watched. Well, mine there wasn't an X2 stick.
What? Where'd you watch it?
I watched the black and white version, so I don't know why that would change it, but there wasn't an X. Like, there was no Fox.
Interesting. I mean, now Disney owns it, but they still have to. That's interesting. I did have the Marvel flip was X-Men themed.
Oh, I don't even think I had a Marvel flip.
What is happening? Maybe that's just the black and white version.
The opening of the black and white was different. It had the cinescope picture
thing. So they went like old
style.
School. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, the Marvel flip page was the X-Men one, which I feel like I haven't seen since Last Stand, and I don't know why they just didn't do that all the time, but that was nice. The movie opens and Logan's first word is the F word. So
he just says it so naturally. All of the swearing in this, I feel like, is very natural. Yeah. A lot of the time, I feel like when a movie will go for an R rating, it'll just feel kind of peppered in there. But this was like, this is. It's
like whenever a TV show is like, this episode, they're gonna say it.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, on network television? What? Yeah, remember the big deal Star Trek Discovery made that they were gonna say the F word?
Yes, I do.
But yeah,
it stood out in not an effective way.
What did stand out when I first saw this is when Patrick Stewart said it. And not so much because it's Patrick Stewart saying it, it's because it's Professor X saying it.
Yeah, I guess maybe because I've become more familiar with Patrick Stewart as like a person.
Yeah.
It was just sort of like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Like, it just sounded like, but yeah, you're right.
When Professor X says it, I'm like, Professor?
Yeah, you're right. I didn't think of that. That's funny.
But yes, they definitely let us know pretty early on that we're in here for an R rating. His first word is the F word. The claws being out. It's a brutal scene, the opening scene.
It is really brutal, and I like the opening scene for many reasons.
The carjacking. So he's asleep in his limo because he's a limo driver. Logan. It's in the far future. I don't even know what year it is. I think it's
2029.
2029. Okay, so it's 2029. Logan, gosh, yeah, we didn't set this up at all, but Logan is a retired. He's not a superhero. He's not with the X-Men. He's off on his own in Mexico City.
Or on the border.
He's on the border.
He's a limo driver, like a rental limo driver.
Yeah, in 2029.
Probably kind of like an Uber kind of a situation.
Yeah.
And it looks like he goes to the north side of the border to do all of his runs, and then he lives in Mexico.
Yeah. And so he's passed out in his limo, and people are jacking his tires, and he can't have that because he needs the cash.
Yeah, and I really like what they give you in that scene, because you get a lot. You get so much from his acting in that, because
he doesn't want to fight them.
Yeah, he doesn't want to.
He's so tired of this. Yes,
and he also there's an amount of emotional regret at having to be this person, at having to do violence at all.
His claws don't extend out all the way when he first.
Yeah, there's one that like gets stuck because it doesn't come out. Yeah, and when he says he says, guys, seriously, you really don't want to do this. And in an earlier take of him, that could very easily have been like a tough guy thing, like, come on, guys, you don't want to do this because I will wipe the floor with you. But it was just it was very direct and genuine. Like, he was really trying to explain to these people, like, you don't want to do this, and I don't want to do this, and let's just not, okay?
But then they start just, like, they shoot him just in the chest, so I guess that's good, because this shows us that they are people that deserve what's about to happen.
Yeah, that's
because if they were just carjackers, that's one thing, but because they just shoot him and then they're gonna beat him to death.
They're like bloodthirsty murderers.
And so he finally it's not until they shoot the car that he goes
after them for a while, where it's sort of like some back and forth where they get him and he gets them, and then at some point they do something. They like start beating him on the ground or something, and then you get the switch.
buckshots hit the and once it hits the limo, he gets real pissed. Yeah. And that's when we get the claws in the head.
Because you really see that change too. Yes. Like, you see him being very violent and fighting, but when he gets the Berserker moment, it's a really noticeable change.
Yes, in his heart he doesn't want it, but the Berserker rage is still there.
Yeah,
that's where I heard the teenagers talking. I call them the teenagers, but the teens that were in the back that were just kind of like, "Haha, we're having a good time. We're at a Wolverine movie. We're gonna live forever." As soon as like the claws went into that guy's head, they were like, "Oh f."
Yeah, there was a lot of claws in the head.
Yeah.
I'll tell you right here, it was a really good call for me to watch the black and white version, because all of that is much more manageable for me to see without blood and everything. I still squinting most of the time to like not really see it, but it's much more palatable.
I'd say there's too many shots of the claws going to heads. Like, they know they can do it, so now they're really going to do it. After a while, it just kind of feels like silly. Like, there's other ways to take people out. I don't know.
It seems like it would be more likely that he would be slashing than stabbing.
Yeah.
And you get a lot more stabbing in this
Stabby, yeah. Through the head. So, but they've also spent how many movies not being able to do this stuff, so I can imagine that's also cathartic for them to be like, show it through you can see the claws in their mouth and then up through their head.
I remember that one the first time.
Yeah, so he wrecks, and then he's pissed, and then we get to see his life, and then it's like 2029, and that is, somebody says it's 2029, why are we still talking about mutants?
That's it. That's where you get
because mutants are basically on their way out. There's no mutants being born. I think I read somewhere that no mutants have been born within like 15 years of this movie.
It's 25.
25 years? Okay.
Yeah.
So
but we don't know why, right? We don't know what happened.
Not at the beginning, no.
Yeah, at that point we don't know why, and we're basically just watching Wolverine live a crappy life.
Yeah.
And we don't really know why that's happening either.
Real crappy.
Until he goes down to Mexico.
So this movie does not care about Wolverine's like past / like amnesia, because technically then this Logan, we've never seen him find out about his past, but in on his limo there's his identification and it says James Howlett.
Oh, right, yeah.
So he now knows. So I don't know. The movies don't care about it. They haven't cared about it since X-Men 2.
They don't, but I think just even having that small thing, that it just places us in a very different
for sure. And that's
region
the thing.
of his life. It's like that all of that stuff is done.
Yes.
Everything that's like roiling in his mind, gone. Like this is Logan of right now.
Yep.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, timeline-wise, I really don't know where to put this at all. Like, I've tried. So there have been some people that said, like, oh, it's just by itself. You don't include it in the timeline. And you can do that, and that's nice. I don't have that ability.
That's the weakness of yours.
So I imagine Logan has to take place. And some other times I've seen people suggest that Logan is the future that happens if it's not for Days of Future Past.
Oh, yeah.
But I also don't go with that at all. So I just put Logan after X-Men Days of Future Past. Like, he wakes up, he has that nice future, everybody's alive, and then Logan happens. So guess what? Everything actually sucks in the end still.
So you're going with, this is the main timeline, and everybody dies. That's what you're sticking with.
Well, I can do that because we're never told who dies. We'll talk about that, but we're never told who dies.
Okay, but I mean, it's pretty heavily implied that it's everybody except for those guys.
They say, okay, so basically the idea is that something terrible happened in Western New York, not Western New York. Westchester, New York. Professor X, when we get to him, we'll find out that his brain is going. He's experiencing a lot of the same things that happen to people as they get older, except he's the most powerful psychic on the planet. And that's very dangerous. As his brain
deteriorates.
Yeah, he can't control it, and so
crazy psychic stuff happens.
There was he had an accident. Well, we'll find out. But they say, like, later we find out that claimed the life of 9 mutants. So, like, 9 isn't the whole X-Men, and it could just be like 9 regular students. Like, oh, I can't believe I'm at the mansion today. It's my first day.
He killed the X-Men.
I like to imagine that Cyclops is like, boy, that was weird. What happened?
It's just some randos. It was a bunch of, like, newcomers who we barely knew yet.
Yeah, mutants got to staff the cafeteria at that school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they're cafeteria staff, so it's okay that he murders
I like to imagine
that's what I'm hearing you say.
That Storm and Colossus are still there, be like, you know who I haven't seen in a while? Logan. So that's the only reason I'm able to emotionally place it where it goes.
Okay, I'll let you do that, I guess.
Honestly, I don't think most people give a crap where it fits in the timeline.
I don't think so either.
I think it's just one of those movies, like you said.
I see it. It's just...
I even see what you mean, like, because the Wolverine is in the X-Men series. Like, they place it very carefully in there, like, beginning and end. Yeah. And I could see just saying, like, Logan doesn't even fit with, like, the Wolverine movies. But then each Wolverine movie has taken a completely... The X-Men Origins was basically a Wolverine movie that was also just an X-Men movie in a lot of ways. Yeah. And then the Wolverine was its own kind of thing. And then Logan is just, so it's a strange beast.
There's something about those movies. There's something about all of the movies except Logan.
Yeah.
That they can all kind of take different stylistic detours, but they all have a certain like shininess to them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to go ahead and exclude the first movie. I feel like stylistically this might fit a little better with the first movie than the rest.
You're talking about X-Men 1 from 2000.
Yes, I'm talking about X-Men 1.
Because that had a $75 million budget.
Yeah, and so it's got more of kind of like a dingy feel to it. But it doesn't, that's only in some ways that fits with those. But Logan just it feels like just a different kind of movie. Like they weren't even trying to make an X-Men movie of any kind. They were like, let's make a movie.
No, I don't think James Mangold was interested in making an X-Men movie for sure. Yeah.
So that makes it seem very easy to accept that it's just this sort of like extra. I think What If is really the best place to put it, because then it can be like, this could happen after the things that happened in those movies. But it didn't necessarily. Like, if we're going to watch it, it came out of those events. But those events didn't necessarily lead to this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I can't do that. I can't live my life that way.
Well, I'm very sorry.
And we also meet Gabriella Lopez. I don't recognize her as a character from the comics and even like the X-23 comics, which make me a bit sad because they could have just called her Sarah Kinney and it would have just been one of those like name placements. That works. So yeah, I don't know. I could be wrong, but I cannot place the name Gabriella Lopez in X-Men canon. But she comes to Wolverine pretty early on. Like we don't get very far of just like Logan being like, I gave it up. I gave it all up.
We're still establishing his
like opening credits,
now.
Right? Yeah, opening credits and like the opening music.
He's like at he's funeral. Driven someone to a funeral and then she shows up. We still haven't settled our understanding of what Logan's life is.
Yeah. Well, did you see it was the first trailer, and I should have known things were going to be rough for me because the first trailer, somebody says it was in black and white. I remember it being in color.
I saw the black and white one with now I can't remember his name either.
Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash.
Well, there's two Johnny Cash ones, right?
I've only seen one, and I'm pretty sure it was black and white.
Okay. Well, there's the Super Bowl one that I think was playing like Star Spangled Banner or something. But there's the one that's playing Hurt. That was like the release trailer, the first trailer that we saw. And Hurt's a very like emotionally packed song. At A.L. Sheshar says on Twitter to us, really loved the movie. It was never going to live up to the amazing trailer, the Johnny Cash version in black and white. But I thought it perfectly ended Jackman's Wolverine and that era of movies. But yeah, so the trailer was like setting everybody up for this. And then this opening credit scene is just really like setting you up like this isn't X-Men Apocalypse.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Oh, Hilary. Gabriella shows up, and like I said, it's pretty quick. Like we establish his life, but she's just right there, just like she calls him Wolverine. That's the first thing she says, and he's just like, get the hell out of here.
So we've started establishing what his life is, and then she helps us to establish what the world is now, because she helps us to see that now the X-Men are something that people have known about. Yeah. And might have expectations
they know of the Wolverine
members.
Yep.
Yeah. Because she comes to him for help, and she's pretty certain. Well, we know for other reasons, but also in this moment, we're feeling that she expects him to help because he's a superhero.
This funeral scene just made me think, like, boy, rain sucks. Rain itself is like the worst to be out in. Like if it was snowing in that scene, he's like, oh, it's cold out. But when it's raining, it's just like you can't do anything.
You are different from me. Snow is so much worse than
really. So if you'd rather, I don't know, if you're just like, oh, you bundle up your coat and the snow is gently falling.
You're freezing. It's cold.
No, and then but when he's out there, it's like, okay, he holds the umbrella, but then he has to put the umbrella down, and he's getting soaked anyways. Like, what's the point of the umbrella? And honestly,
there's a way to get in a car with an umbrella.
The opening, that funeral scene, it's like watching a Kurosawa film. There's so much rain coming down, and. Yeah, as soon as we meet Gabriella, we then also meet Donald Pierce. He's in his limo, and and getting money, right? He's off getting money or getting the car fixed or something, and Donald Pierce comes to... He's in his limo, says that he's a fan of the Wolverine.
That's right, yeah.
Which...
Like you read the comics or
you
something.
know, it's so obnoxious. He says he's a fan, but then he's like, douches never learn. They always like, oh man, I love Batman, and then they never learn from Batman. And that's Donald Pierce. He's a fan of the Wolverine. He's fan of Wolverine, but he's just... Anyway, Donald Pierce...
I'll tell you what, though. I think he's the kind of menacing that I really like in movies. Like, I wouldn't like him in real life, but like, I enjoy his kind of menacing because he doesn't seem like a particularly threatening person with like body type and stuff, but he's just got this sort of like laid back...
He's a good old boy. ...kind
of menace that like... You don't know what he would do, but you just feel like he would just hurt you.
Yeah, he's got that southern good old boy charm, but he's also a bad guy.
Bad guy.
He's played by Boyd Holbrook. Ooh, yeah, I think he's very good in this. I think he's not like he is the main villain and he's not, but every time he's like on scene, he's he can be kind of funny, he can be kind of charming, he can be menacing.
Yeah, I think he's a good kind of villain to put against Wolverine.
Oh yeah.
Like you don't want to just go like if you went with like a Sabretooth, completely different movie. Like you can't have any kind of back and forth depth, nothing. So he's a good type.
Holbrook said of the character, he's a big fan of Wolverine. He just wants to hang out with him.
Yeah.
So going in with that, and it does seem kind of that way. Like in a different situation, this Donald Pierce would like to buy Wolverine a beer and hear the stories.
But they're just at cross purposes.
Yeah, so this is Donald Pierce as a Reaver. So Donald Pierce in the comics, he started as in the Hellfire Club, and then he was part of the Reavers and was just kind of like a really nasty villain type of character. So I was kind of surprised because I didn't think like this is kind of that role that you could just have be throwaway, but I think he kind of makes it an interesting character. But then he says that they know the Wolverine's still alive because the people that Wolverine attacked were either clawed up by the Wolverine or a tiger. And since tigers are extinct...
Oh, Eric, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we got 9 years, according to Logan.
Oh,
so
no.
I've been thinking about getting a tiger tattoo so that I can remember what they look like.
That's depressing, Eric. That's so depressing.
So anyways, Donald Pierce just wants him to call him, not get involved with this Gabriella. He doesn't want him, just stay out of the way and like give him money and everything. Give him a lot of money. Or they offer to give him money, but he won't take it. Gabriella's offering him like a whole bunch of money up front and then a whole bunch of money on the return. And we find out that's because he needs to buy a boat.
He's got a plan. Have we seen... Well, have we seen Xavier yet at this point?
This is where he gets there and we find there's a Caliban there. I say Caliban because we've already had a Caliban in X-Men Apocalypse.
One of the Calibans.
Stephen Merchant.
I like this guy. Yeah, I like Stephen Merchant as Caliban. He has a good energy.
He's a tall guy too.
Yeah.
Like even taller than Hugh Jackman, who's already too tall to be playing Wolverine. But he kind of like hunches a bit, so he's not.
He does hunch. Yeah. I think he feels really good. Like right off the bat, it feels like a situation where they're all just these old colleagues. They're not really friends. They don't really like each other, but they sort of care about each other just because they know each other for a long time. And like you just really feel that in all of their interactions.
It's probably the overthinker in me, but I kind of do want to see like how does Caliban end up with these two?
Yeah.
Strength and surviving, like they help each other out. Caliban.
Well, I mean, I feel like once the whole mutants thing starts to pass, then you would just sort of change all of the dynamics amongst you just to sort of like figure out how you relate to each other.
Because he tracks mutants, but he's not... Wolverine doesn't need that. Apparently, they put him in the movie because they didn't realize he was in X-Men Apocalypse.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So that also shows you how much oversight Fox had on anything. They just did not like, oh wait, you can't use him. It's crazy.
Crazy.
And yeah, we find out that Professor X is being kept in like a water tank.
Yeah, honestly, Eric, this is one point that I have trouble with. Because why does he have to be in a dilapidated?
I don't know. They say it's supposed to help.
It's not like it's some rare metal.
Yeah, they say it's supposed to help, but I don't know how. Yeah, other than maybe it just looks like Cerebro, and so
maybe it's just tricking it.
Yeah, maybe it's just supposed to be a visual
you're in Cerebro, so things are contained.
Yeah, unless he like. I don't really understand how, like, Cerebro works. When we were watching X-Men 2 and Magneto changes things around, I'm like, so do the panels matter where they are?
The panels.
Yeah.
You look for different people.
I don't understand how the panels work. But, he keeps him in this water tank.
But it's all very post-apocalyptic, it's good imagery, even if it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
He's pretty cutting, this Patrick Stewart's Xavier.
I love everything that he does in this movie.
Well, he says, like, what a disappointment you turned out to be. And I'm just like,
so real. Oh, all of the dementia that he portrays and all of the ways that he really cuts into Logan, it's just so good.
I stand by the fact that if this same performance had been in a not superhero movie, he would at least been nominated.
Yes.
For supporting actor.
And maybe nowadays he could have been. Like,
I don't know. It was only 3 years ago.
A little bit.
I just felt like there were people talking like, oh, Logan should get like a best movie nomination. I didn't see that, but I stood by like, well, I don't know if Hugh Jackman or the movie or anything, but Patrick Stewart should have been like nominated. Mm-hmm. But
he was phenomenal, and it was like the first time I watched it, I worried that he was too old.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw him after it and I was like, no, he was just acting.
Yeah.
Like it felt so real and genuine.
You were worried for Patrick Stewart
that
in
I was
general.
worried that Patrick Stewart was like losing it.
Right. Because they say something like Donald Pierce says my favorite Octarian. He's like, actually I'm a non-Tarian or whatever.
Nonagenarian.
Nonagenarian, yeah.
But like that scene is so good because it establishes his whole thing, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And it also goes really far with their relationship.
Yeah.
And it feels like a really straight trajectory from where they started to where they are now with him taking care of him like an elderly father.
Like, I feel like because we care about Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, that when Patrick Stewart says, what a disappointment you turned out to be, it kind of hurts my feelings. It's just like, really, he was really good. Hard. He's doing it.
And you know that it hurts him.
Having to say it.
You can see, no, I mean, it hurts Logan.
Oh, yeah.
You can see it's one
of
the
few things that's going to, like, affect him like that.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Like, he doesn't care what anybody thinks about him, but you can see that he cares about Charles and his relationship with him.
Yeah, I mean, gosh. I mean, we've seen him interact with him a bit. I mean, he was knocked out in the first movie. He was mind-controlled in the second movie, but we still get, like, scenes of them, like, going back and forth. They interact in the third one, but also Days of Future Past is basically Wolverine hanging out with like a young Patrick Stewart and or not a young Patrick, but a young Professor X. So we've seen these characters like interact at multiple points in their lives.
Mm-hmm. And they always have a special relationship because like Xavier is just more real with Logan than he is with the other people because
he can take it. Wolverine's
he's not
older.
His teacher.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they have a more like just kind of regular relationship.
They say that thing, he says something, he starts talking about, like, being in contact. He says something about a Statue of Liberty, and Logan says, the Statue of Liberty was a long time ago. That's for those of us who want that continuity thing, like, okay, so at least the first movie counts.
Yeah.
At least you can watch X-Men 1 and then watch Logan. But also, I think it's also just there to talk about, like, maybe the American dream in this movie.
Yeah,
like the idea of the Statue of Liberty was a long time ago, Professor.
You only ever see the like localized region that they're in, so you don't really know what's going on with the world, but it does have that feel of like things have kind of broken down.
Don't forget too, this is the first X-Men movie to come after November 2016.
Yep. You sort of wonder if there's something different about how they make it or if it's more how we watch it.
It's the first Marvel movie after November 2016. And it has, you're right, how much did they make because of that? Or maybe they saw how things were going and how much did we put on it? Because it does have that kind of, like, we hear when he's driving people, you just hear those frat boys yelling USA outside the limo.
Yeah.
So it has that kind of, it looked how we felt for some of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they mentioned that Statue of Liberty thing. They mentioned there's been no new mutants in forever, but Professor X is claiming that he's been in communication with one, and so Logan just doesn't believe him. I think
thinks he's crazy.
One of the stark things is that, like, it reminds me of Mad Max Fury Road, because for a lot of it, it's just orange sand and blue skies, and that's like the look for like this beginning, like when he's walking to the tank. I don't the colors are just so, they just kind of pop. Not for you, you saw it in black and white, so none of this means anything.
That's true. That's
this
true.
one, I haven't watched the black and white version. I don't know if I can handle watching it in black and white.
It was really good. I would recommend it.
So again, that was the thing Fury Road did. Mad Max Fury Road released like what did they call it? Something in chrome. Blood in chrome, maybe?
Oh, that's interesting.
And then I think Logan took a cue from that.
It feels less like a superhero movie and more like the action is more like Terminator or something like that. Like it's more like car chases.
There's a scene that feels very Terminator-esque later in the movie.
So even like the choreography and the action.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's wire work, especially near the end, but it doesn't feel like the same kind of like Wolverine jumping off balconies and throwing people in the air with his claws.
Yeah, right,
it feels very much like, no, you're gonna get stabbed and you're gonna fall. There's no wire pulling you back into another room. But hey, we do see a sword.
We see a sword?
In his bedroom. Logan keeps a samurai sword in his bedroom.
Oh, I didn't see that.
So maybe the Wolverine also counts.
There you go. They're all piling up.
Yeah, so Caliban in his relationship is very much like, so Wolverine trying to be like the dad, the caregiver to Professor X. He's trying to be like the kid taking care of his elderly father to Professor X. But then you have Caliban being kind of like the, I don't know, like it's almost kind of like mom,
don't you?
No, I want to say like mom and dad are fighting in these situations, because he says like, I don't want to fight, but we have to talk. It feels very much like,
it does have that intimate kind of feel to it.
The Logan Caliban relationship feels very like married.
Yeah.
So like they've been doing this for a while. The Caliban knows it's gonna become a fight, and that's why he has to preface it. So like how long these two have been together, Caliban and him had enough fight, and it's just so funny. He's like, I don't want to fight, but we have to talk.
Yeah,
and like,
it's a really cool thing.
I say that all the time to Kendra. I'm like, I don't want to fight, but we have to have this conversation.
Yep.
So.
It's another cool layer to have in this movie, because you mentioned that it's a lot about mortality and that kind of thing, but this element to it gives you so much of that when you're getting older, and like the things that affect the family and how like different stages of life present all of these different kinds of situations. It so crisply mirrors the experience of so many families who have this kind of thing happening.
Now we get to see, like, they keep showing off how Logan's healing isn't working the way it used to. They talked about it. I don't think I saved it, but they were talking about how the healing, he still heals fast, but it leaves scars now. And the claws don't go in and out as easy as they used to. And now we also find out...
it feels like he's, like, sometimes it doesn't really even heal completely.
Yeah. It's just... It's funny because, like, these movies, since the Wolverine and Logan keep trying to get rid of his healing ability because it's easier to tell a dramatic story that way, but then, like, they end up bringing his healing power down to the level it was when he was, like, first introduced in the comics. Like, if he gets shot, he's going to be down and out, but he's just going to heal faster than normal people. Whereas, like, the movies are like, no, he can heal like that for the most part. And so, like... it kind of looks like, oh man, that sucks, but that's how he was kind of like introduced.
Right.
Like, if he gets shot, it's still gonna suck. But he has to wear glasses now, we find out.
I like that.
There's something so endearing about like him, and he still has the tag on when he first puts the glasses on. And it's funny because Caliban had said you need glasses or something because you can't read the label, and that's when Logan left all pissed off, but then he still gets the glasses.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's another thing. That's such a family thing, you know. Like, don't talk to him about his weaknesses, but then he's like, oh well, I guess they're right.
But he goes back to talk to Gabriella. But he doesn't go back. He gets hired. She hires him to pick him up at the limo. She tricked him, and that's where we meet Lara, who is played by young Daphne Keane. Who during the filming she was 11 years old.
I always wonder about these kinds of things because the kinds of stuff that they make her do, I always I watch it and I'm like, this is great, and then I'm like, she's 11, and they're making her murder these people.
I think it got canceled. I don't think it's getting another season, but she went on to be in the his Dark Materials show.
Yeah, I saw
on HBO. It's funny. Sometimes she's just a little button, and then other times she has a snarl that I'm like, wow, I would not want to be the teacher in her class.
Well, I'm really impressed with her in this, because you do have that. She just feels, she just captures that whole feeling of like this sort of like underdeveloped emotional child who also has this kind of feral thing.
Well,
probably from Wolverine's genes, basically. But then she's also sweet.
Yeah,
and like has been nurtured by the nurses. Like you can see all of her experiences in her acting.
Well, later we get the line, rage can't be taught, it has to be like manufactured or something. Yeah,
that was weird.
Yeah, I don't really get that.
That was weird.
That line, but the idea that like they were trying to make her into a killing machine, but they couldn't, because maybe at her nature she's still she's not going to be like the monster they want her to be. You say emotionally like stunted, but at the same time, when X-23/Lara was introduced in the comics, like emotional vacuum, it kind of seemed like at points. And this Lara seems like she's kind of like she can get there. You know, this Lara seems like she's almost already there on her own. She's just in a crappy situation.
Well, it's like she's knowing how she's been raised. She's got the walls up, and she's got, dealing with, I mean, she's mute by choice, basically. She's just got all of that protecting yourself as an abused child kind of stuff.
But then there are other scenes where you just see her and like, you just want to boop her on the little nose and be
so cute.
Yes.
Well, it's extra cute because when she finally shows up and is relating to Xavier, she really latches onto him as like a safe adult. And so you get to see some of those, like holding his hand and just little things that you don't see her do with other things, because she can let her guard down.
Wolverine, this scene, I think I was just like, there's grumpy Wolverine and there's like super mean grumpy Wolverine. And he is being the mean grumpy. Like he's been grumpy, but like with Gabriella and like he's just like, I mean, you just want to be like, come on, man.
Well, I think he's so
over it.
He's just spent several years now where his priority has been keeping Xavier safe, and so I think he's just driven his instinct to help people. He has to like consciously be like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I think if it were the sort of like he just doesn't really care about people, then you wouldn't really have that harsh reaction. But it's like you're seeing him be like, this is a thing I used to do. I'm not going to do it because I have my priority and I have to stick to that. So he has to kind of like force himself to be he's not a kitten or anything, but I think he pushes himself to be harsher, to like get out of the situation.
Right. I didn't say it. Elizabeth Rodriguez is playing the role of Gabrielle Lopez.
They're at the hotel, right?
Well, that's where he met her, and like they were talking and everything. But then he goes back because she called asking for help, and it turns out she's dead. Gabriella is dead. Lara isn't there that he can see. And so he takes the money, he takes her phone, and he's like watching the video, and he sees some of the things that she was showing that were happening at, did they say what the facility was called?
I don't think that they do.
And then he goes back because they saw, like they knew where he was or something. Like, he needs to get Professor X out now, is the thing.
Yes.
Because now they know that like maybe Logan is attacked. So like he gets there and he's trying to get Caliban to get Professor X and everything. Donald Pierce shows up. Hey, do you notice the first name of this character in this post-2016 film? The first name of the villain character in the post-2016 film?
I really didn't notice that.
Yeah, Donald Pierce goes there and is like, I thought we had a deal, the Wolverine. I trusted you, the Wolverine. But he gets a pipe to the head.
Yeah. Like, that must have been thrown hard.
Yeah, Lara throws it. No, Lara doesn't throw it. Boy, I can't remember the scene at all, because he finds that Lara had come in the back of the limo, kind of like how Rogue snuck in the back of his truck in the first X-Men movie. Pipe to the head and just falls down. That's a brutal way to get knocked out.
Yeah, that's not fun.
But Professor X, he just shows up, because he was right. And he's just like, this is who I was talking to. And he's just like, come, let's get you food. Let's have a good time. I'm a teacher again. You never lose it.
He does fall right into it.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
just
right away. He starts talking. I mean, later in the car, he's talking about how he's like giving a lecture on lions to explain her mutation, which is just like right into professor mode. Caliban's going to go take care of Donald, and the others are going to pack the car and get gone. They're going to get Professor X and head to get their boat and get out. But the rest of the Reavers show up. This isn't the type of movie where we're going to see the Reavers as they look in the comics. Like, Donald has his mechanical hand. A lot of them have mechanical hands and things. And I think we're supposed to believe that, like, they lost their hands to the mutants, the mutant children that they were doing. Like, maybe Laura is the reason Donald is missing a hand.
I hadn't thought of that.
That's how I always imagined it, because he has a healthy respect for those claws later on. Yeah, in the comics, I mean, the Reavers, one of them is just, like, human from the waist up, and then moves around on, like, tank treads. And they have all these, over-the-top comic book machines. And I guess part of me wants to see those. And I guess if you're making this type of movie, you can't do it. Yeah. But, I mean, I guess we got the Reavers.
But I like how it sort of turns out that these are people who, they're like mercenaries.
Yeah.
Like whoever's
private
actually
security
has hired them to go after her.
They're nasty guys. They're not the nasty boys.
No.
They're the nasty guys.
Nasty
guys. Nasty
so
guys
then
sounds worse
Laura
than nasty boys.
She's in with Xavier eating her little cereal and being cute. And so far, we haven't really seen much from her to know what her deal is.
No, she's just eating the cereal and being quiet.
Probably a mutant.
Even when they're packing the car and Logan just runs in and grabs Professor X to put him in the limo, and that's it. You're just going in the limo. We're going. He's like, we have to help Laura, and Logan's like, nope, we're going. Laura's just sitting in the room, just eating her cereal. So when the Reavers do show up all together and are surrounding Logan, she's just sitting there like watching it on the security camera, eating cereal. And so it's sad because they're beating on Logan. Like, they're just beating him down. And it makes when Donald Pierce is just like, it pains me to see you like this. It's the same thing, because you just want part of the appeal of, like, all superheroes. But I tend to think also Wolverine is that, like, he has this code of honor and this code of righteousness. Like, he knows what's right, and he is going to make sure the right thing is done. He can make the right thing happen because of what he had, his healing powers, his claws, and everything. And so when his healing and his fighting ability are taken away, it's frustrating because you still know he knows what's right, and you want him to fix things. You just want him to, like, claw up the Reavers and get everybody to safety, and now he can't, and you're so used to seeing him be able to do that. It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
But
then you see sort of a switch from that, because it's not going to be him.
Yeah,
it's going to be
Donald sends some guys in to get Laura, and you just hear some screaming and some shooting, and then she comes out, and it's a gross scene because she throws the head. The scene is so funny, though, because she's just, like, slowly walking up to Donald Pierce and the other Reavers. Pierce is just like, Laura, come on, come with me. No, Laura, don't do that. Laura, no, stay. You can just see the fear in his face. It's just such a funny performance as, like, this little 11-year-old girl is walking up to him, and then those claws come out. It's just, that's a very satisfying turn. Yeah.
He knows what's up. And it's interesting, too, because you see him in those videos. He's been in that facility. And so he knows her, and she knows him. And so you see him start with that attitude of, like, it's that little girl. I can handle this. I know her. She's gonna listen to me. I'm the tough guy from school or whatever. And then seeing, no, that's not how it's gonna go.
But again, like, she's fighting them and she gets taken down, and that's where finally Logan comes in and claws up the bad guys and, like, lets out his berserker.
It's the moment of him coming to the rescue, which is nice.
It made me very happy. Like, I even wrote, Wolverine, baby, F yeah! Like, it's just that moment, like, his back! it is satisfying after watching him get like beat up by multiple people and like not do anything. I mean, he's still not necessarily like, it doesn't feel like he's necessarily helping Lara at this moment, but he's doing the right thing regardless by helping her at this moment. And
well, I think that there's something there.
Yeah.
Because
when he sees
it's
her
an abstract
claws
thing, he can walk away.
Yeah.
But when it's like right in front of him and she's being attacked, then he's gonna jump in.
And he's seen the video, he's seen Gabriella dead and everything. It just felt so I didn't cry at the end of this movie. I cried during the movie a few times because 2020, I'll just say 2020's been an emotional year. So
if you're gonna cry, it's gonna be in 2020.
What kind of happened was not just like Wolverine, like Logan being back to like a Wolverine moment in this scene, but it also just felt so nice to feel like the adults were doing the adult thing.
Yeah,
and I feel like I haven't seen adults being adults in years, and so
taking care of something.
Yeah, taking responsibility, taking care. So like seeing Wolverine doing the right thing, that's also a cathartic moment. And we've talked about it before. My lizard brain always gets caught up in these things, and then like I could just be watching like, I don't know. I just need the music and the kinetic motion on screen to be enough, and all of a sudden I'm like, why am I crying? You know, it's just Lara is spitting out bullets that she got shot with.
Oh, I missed that.
She sucks a bullet out of her arm and then spits it out.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Then there's this whole car chase, and I just kind of feel like, so I looked when they finally get the limo on the other side of the tracks, and the car and this like car chase is done, which is a brutal car chase because they're also stabbing people through the cars. Lara's on top of the limo. He's trying to like get over the fence and then having to turn around.
I love that moment of him trying to get, because they drive to like burst through the fence.
He can't do it.
Exactly. You know what's supposed to happen.
He's got a limo.
You can feel it. You drive, you hit the thing, it bursts open, and they ride. And then it just like catches and like stretches.
And then he's dragging it behind him, and so then that's dragging into
the weapon.
Yep. I felt like it when I first saw it, and I still feel it this time. This first 40 minutes until they get across the tracks, it's just a very stressful 40 minutes. It's stressful watching Logan look and act the way he does. It's stressful with Professor X, and so like that's stressful. And then this whole like they're outnumbered, they're not at their full power. It's all just a thing of stress. And then once they get across the train tracks, I feel like the movie, it doesn't necessarily like lose anything, but I think that first 40 minutes is a different type of like tension.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think you're right that it also isn't, it's not losing, but it is a stark, and I think the train just serves as like a very deliberate.
Well, that's when it becomes the road trip movie, which is going to have a different pacing. And I think part of me, it's a relief, but then also part of me wants that like that same kind of boiling tension that we had for that first 40 minutes.
You couldn't take it for that long.
Maybe not. I don't know.
No, I think it's a good call. I think it's a good call because you have that rising tension, and then you have a really successful like burst of energy, and then you can settle in for a little bit for the road trip part. I think it works.
But I do think that like, I guess I get what I'm saying. I think the first 40 minutes is almost just like it by itself, apart from the rest of the movie. It's just like great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Logan and Professor X are now watching the phone because they finally charged it, and they're seeing all this stuff about Transigen. That's it. Transigen. Run by Xander Rice, who is a character from the, which was it? Innocent Lost? From the first X-23 comic that came out, Xander Rice was a character working on the same program that created Lara. And he's played by Richard E. Grant in this, so we find out about him. People seem to know who Richard E. Grant is. I don't really connect him with anything.
Yeah, it's possible he's one of those people who just shows up in things, but he was very familiar.
When you talk about how we watch a movie differently than maybe they intended, the Transigen scene, I don't want to use the phrase kids in cages.
Oh, wow. I did not see that, but yeah.
I mean, it's what we're seeing. Like, they're just, it's bad. Anyway, I've said the phrase, so you can connect it however you want now.
I mean, those scenes are brutal. They're very brutal.
It is, because
you see them very deliberately. Like, you see the kids being dehumanized. You see the nurses trying to to help them and like loving them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see that doctor guy, whatever his name is, very like deliberately
Richard
be
E.
like,
Grant. Yeah.
don't treat them like
he says they don't have a birth date. They don't have, they're not, they think of them as a product or something.
Yeah.
Or even worse, like a house plant. Or he
just awful.
He has no moral center about these kids. They are 100% property of Transigen.
Which is crazy too, because like you eventually find that they went in this different direction of like piecing someone together or whatever it is that they did. But like these kids, they'd walk you through the process. These were babies. They were implanted in women. They were born and they were raised from infancy.
Mm-hmm.
And they really thought that they were just going to get them. I mean, it's been 11 years. I guess I'm starting to feel a little skeptical as I'm talking about this, about them being able to go 11 years with
that. Well, it's 10 years, or 10 or 11 years, however long this has been going. Maybe they've accelerated their growth.
That's possible.
They talk about how it's not working anymore, that they don't think it's going to work, that they're not getting the soldiers, that they're still people and they're not doing what they want, so they're going to work on something else. And so we just see like the thing that says X-24, and that they were going to basically put down, is the way they would see it, put them down. Yep. They are going to kill all the kids now. I think we even see like video of them being like given
I think
chemicals.
that you see at least some of the kids do get killed.
So that's
but
how
then the nurses are going around trying to rescue as many as they can.
Gabriella, the nurses and Gabriella break them out, and so some of them get out, and now they're trying to get out there. We see on the chart, like when they're looking at the chart to see like where the other mutants get their powers from, Avalanche is named there as one of the characters, and also Bolt from X-Men Origins.
Really?
Bradley is listed as one of the names, so they've got some ties. And then I guess we see like Iceman and like Iceman's powers and other characters. In the hotel, Professor X watching Shane is pretty on the nose. Logan the movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they use lines from it later on. I think we have to assume that it was a pretty strong influence on the creative process.
Yes, for sure. And, they play with that with Laura at the end. Apparently, Professor X telling the story of when he first saw the movie is actually Patrick Stewart just talking about the first time he saw the movie.
Shut up. I love that.
I couldn't find a quote of that saying, but I found that on like facts about the movie.
That's awesome. I really love that a lot. I was going to say that's another moment of him being like a teacher. Mm-hmm. Just like that's how he interacts with her.
They bought clothes. They buy clothes, and Logan's getting dressed, and was like, "Where's his jacket? Where's that jacket? It was so damn important in the first movie that we had to know its origins. Where'd that go? Is that a victim of the mental attack?" And
I think it was. I thought that was kind of a weird moment when Laura is looking at the mannequins, and it's like a grown up and a child holding hands, and it's very obvious that it's like she's just seeing this relationship that she doesn't have but has this inherent need for. And then like Xavier's just like, oh, we need clothes. And that's just sort of it. Nobody ever like...
Well, I don't know. I mean,
anything.
Maybe it's if she gets the clothes, then she'll feel like she's now part of that parental unit that she's seeing in the mannequins. If she can fake it till she makes it, maybe.
I guess it feels like the kind of thing, like that could be true. That could be true. It just, with Xavier, it seems like the kind of thing that he would intuit, usually. And I guess normally you would see something more obvious of him, like, handling that situation. But yeah, maybe it's just...
What is this shirt again? It's like a unicorn on a rainbow? Something like that? Or it's
very
just
cheesy.
Yeah, with the big sunglasses.
Yeah.
So I think this is the part of the movie where they had originally thought about, but they didn't. There's no filming of it, but they had thought about including Sabretooth in the movie.
Really?
And I'm pretty sure Liv Tyler was Liv Tyler.
Now Liv Tyler is Sabretooth.
Liev Schreiber. They were the ones that they were going to bring back. So it wasn't going to be Tyler Mane.
Okay, well that would be a good call casting wise, but I do think it's I think it's smart that they went without it, because I think anything more from his past would be a mistake.
Well, so his role, from what you can find online, is that they need help. They need transportation. They need a car, and so Jackman would come to him, or Jackman.
Okay.
So Wolverine was going to come to him, and so like he was going to help him out. So I don't know if maybe like Sabretooth is now like the head of a casino or an enforcer at the casino or something, but. So,
yeah, I think if they were going to do it, that's a good way to do it, but I like that.
I imagine there would be a line where he's like, hey, don't worry about it, we're brothers. But then, yes, you'd really have to say, like, X-Men Origins is totally in line with these. I mean, part of me, I would have liked to see him back in that. I get why they didn't do it, and it probably would have been, yes, like, continuity too heavy, and people would have, like, been like, oh, wait, but is that the same as the one, is it Tyler Mane Sabretooth, or...
Even just having it just makes it a different kind of movie, because the more direct ties that you have to the past, the less of a standalone thing.
It's like you said, this Wolverine is done with his past.
Right, exactly.
So it doesn't connect anymore. Also, by the time, how long was Wolverine getting dressed? Because Shane is not a short movie. So when he comes out and that movie's over, I'm just like, that's...
I mean, it's on TV, right? So like,
it should be even longer.
Yeah. Maybe they just came in at the end.
Yeah, I hate that like kid.
Playing.
I hate that kid in Shane. That blonde-headed kid.
I've seen that movie.
Uh-huh.
And I don't remember
that
anything.
Kid is so obnoxious in that movie, and I don't get why people think he's good. I think he breaks that movie, at least for me. So yes, this is where Laura hears the whole, like, there are no more guns in the valley, or you're gonna have to carry your own weight, space cowboy. But this is where Wolverine is like, I should say, this is where Logan is like an extra jerk. It's not just like grumpy Wolverine. This is like jerk Wolverine. Because he's like making fun of this little girl that he knows has had a traumatic life, and he's like making fun of her comic book collection. Gosh!
Well, he's just got so much baggage. And I think that he, like, having a young girl there, regardless of if he knows that she's his daughter, that's always been his thing, you know, like this paternal
we haven't talked about that at all. Yes, because Professor X is just right there, because they know. They know how she came about and how they made the other mutants. It was cloning other mutants. So, like, they know she was cloned from him. And Patrick Stewart is just like, she's your daughter. She's your clone. You're connected, and like Logan does not connect with that at all, or at least not to us. But like he doesn't say he just seems still in this part of the movie. He seems like as soon as we can unload this kid, there's no.
Well, I think it's you know, a psychological reaction. He can't allow himself to believe that.
Right.
He has just driven himself to be this like present one goal guy.
Right.
And so he just can't let himself accept that.
Right. So what does he call it? He calls it like ice cream for bedwetters or something.
But I really like that. I love when you see the comics, and they're just like regular X-Men comics. I like the idea of that being a thing that happened, that like the comics happened because it was a real thing that happened, and the comics are about real events, but like comicified.
Comicified. Comics were written by Joe Quesada, and the artist who does the comics is Dan Panasayan. He said he was trying to go for like a golden age look of the comics, like an age where the X-Men weren't even being written at the time. So kind of like the 40s or something. But yeah, like on the cover, it's Sauron is on the cover. The pterodactyl.
Yeah.
So, like, something, we never saw in the movies. And Logan kind of gives us that, you know, some things are legends, some things are true kind of Star Wars mentality, where he says, sure, some of this might have happened in some way or another, but, you know, not like this or something. Because, like, they draw Wolverine in the comics as, like, not just the blue and gold, but, like, the whiskers blue and gold.
Oh, yeah.
Wolverine gets a truck, which doesn't strike me as very economic for fuel for a long road trip.
True, but maybe it's the terrain.
Also, it's 2029, so maybe this is a full-out hybrid. Who knows if they're still using gasoline in 9 years. The other part Wolverine's so mad is because the location they're supposed to go, like he was told there's a safe place called Eden? Is that? They're supposed to go to a place called Eden, and then he finds it in the comic, and that's where they were supposed to go. So now he's like pissed because he's on like a wild goose chase that has upended his whole life.
See, this makes me feel a little crazy. And I think it can be explained because he's got this one track mind thing and he's got a chip on his shoulder about being a former hero and what these comics mean to the world and to him and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. But the way that he completely dismisses it just seems so silly to me. Because why wouldn't that be a way that these kids would communicate with each other? Like, why does it matter? Like, it doesn't have to be a place that exists the way it does in the comics. Mm-hmm. It's just coordinates that they all have access to, and they're going to meet there. And it just doesn't even cross his mind.
He doesn't buy it at all. Yeah, he doesn't believe in that comic book crap, Hilary. Yeah, that's what 11-year-olds watching this movie would think, Hilary.
I'm sorry,
but Xavier has another seizure, and like now in like a very populated area, and you see like it's kind of that like everybody's frozen like he used to do in the movies. Except
I thought that was cool.
He's killing them if he latches on too long. Kind of how they always said if he focuses too hard in X-Men 2, he could kill the person he's focused on. Yeah. So, you see Logan just like trying to slowly make his way up there. This is definitely where I felt like I've seen enough claws through the heads. Yeah, because he's just walking by like, you, boom, you, boom, you, boom. Like, enough! And
it's such a weird thing because you know that they're aware because you see them looking, but it's also like this weird frozen moment where he does the thing, but you don't see the effect until
the seizure stops and everybody drops. Yeah. So
it's very interesting.
He's able to keep their brain function long enough to keep them up, I guess, is the thing.
Hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, you're right, because as that one guy is looking at him, his eyes turn, and it's not like time is it's not like when the Flash is moving and you see like everybody moving. It's a different kind of
he's
thing.
Like watching.
Yeah,
he's tracking.
But it's sad because when Logan gives him the medicine to stop it, and he's wheeling Professor X out, Professor X is just like, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's so, and he's just like devastated.
Yeah,
it's that old man.
His voice is like cracky. It has that worn out, like, please. He's aware of what happened and everything. And this is where it's confirmed because you hear on the news that the event that happened there seems to be the same event that happened in Westchester.
Right.
And then
you
it
says
like
feels
killed.
Like you have your suspicions confirmed there. Yeah. You're like, okay, so this is what happened.
Because at the beginning of the movie, we don't know what happened to the X-Men. And Professor X, it seems like he kind of gets lucid a moment with Logan in the tank, and he says, what did you do? What did you do? Yeah. And so we're supposed to believe that, like, it was an Old Man Logan thing. Because in the comics, in Old Man Logan, all the villains get their act together and attack everybody all at once and, like, do a coordinated attack. And so Mysterio makes Wolverine think all the villains are attacking the mansion. And so Wolverine's, like, killing all these villains and protecting and everything, and then it turns out it's Mysterio, and Wolverine's now killed all the X-Men.
Yikes.
And that's how Old Man that's why he stops that's why he puts his claws away and goes off and has a Clint Eastwood Western life for a while. But I feel like that's what they're trying to hint at with that, what did you do? And then, it's confirmed, like, oh no, it was Professor X that did this.
I think that's so cool too because it makes so much sense. Oh,
you think it's cool the X-Men are dead, Hilary?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. No, just I really like how Xavier puts that on him. Like, he knows something happened, but he can't accept that it was him, and so he's like, Logan did something, and it just, I don't know, I just like that.
No, it's a good turn. I don't think you wouldn't think about it normally because it's Professor X.
But you also sort of suspect it because he's so out of control, and you see what he does. He first has his seizure, and then you sort of wonder.
But that means now people know which way they're going and everything. They know where they're heading. I can't remember how they figure out how the bad guys, the Reavers, find out which way they're going. But anyways, they're driving on the road, and we see all these.
At that point, they have Caliban.
Oh, right, they got Caliban. That's how they're tracking him.
They get Caliban, and they use him to track them.
Yep, because the guy Xander comes in person and is talking to Caliban. He's like, "You've been giving us delayed information," and he kind of convinces him, like, we need to, the most powerful brain, the most powerful weapon, but deteriorating. This is a dangerous situation. Really, they're after Laura, but they're using the whole Patrick Stewart thing as a means to get Caliban to help them. The roads are filled with all these automated trucks that make these funny little beeping sounds.
Yeah, which just feels like where we're going, Like, as soon as they started talking about the automated cars, it felt like that was, like, trucks would be an obvious place to take them.
At Jeremiah on our Twitter said he likes how Kamala Harris used this movie specifically to talk about job security.
Yeah, because of where we're going with automation.
What's the quote? She says, if you look closely in Logan, she says, which you will notice that there are a bunch of trucks on the freeway and none of them have a cab. This movie takes place in 2029 and it's just that, driverless cars. That's the truth. And then she talked about it's going to happen, and we have to, what does she say? What we have to do in terms of the economic message is to, 1, speak the truth, and to 2, have a plan for transitioning them into jobs that will be there. Using Logan to talk about future job security. Cool.
I love thinking of Kamala Harris as an X-Men fan. Let's get her on the podcast.
You think we could? But yeah, it just shows you, but also how dangerous that road is then with all those automated trucks. Because they're talking, it's just so funny because Professor X is constantly trying to be like, take a moment, look at the situation. There's a young girl and Logan's like, yep, I can see her. There she is. It's like, she needs help. It's like, okay, you say so. And just does not want to get involved. Something, they drive off the road and the trucks, they knock this family with their horses get knocked back and the horses are loose, which is a stressful scene seeing horses on the freeway in a world where people are driving the cars. Put it on this situation, like, oh god, I know. This movie, for all I know, we're gonna see a horse get smashed.
Well, those trucks are so stupid too because they don't even slow down. Nope. They just honk.
They just
hey, get out of the way.
Professor X is like, we have to help, and Logan's like, someone will come along, and Professor X says, someone has come along.
I love that moment so much because it just speaks to my soul because that's what people think. Someone will come along. I don't have to deal with it. Someone will deal with it. But that's what you're the one. You're the person. Because if you're not going to, then the next person who comes along is going to think the exact same thing. You're going to think the next person will come along. You got to take the responsibility. It's
the whole message of the movie too, that Logan is just constantly he needs to go do what he needs to do. Someone else will solve this problem. And Professor X has been trying for whoever knows how long to convince Logan's no, you've come along, Logan. And you're the guy that needs to do things. But after they help this family, and Professor X is the one who does it because he uses his powers to bring the horses back over.
Yeah, has he done it before?
Has he ever controlled animals in the movies? I don't think so. In other things,
I guess if it's just a matter of calming them, I guess that kind of makes sense that he can do that because that's not a complex.
Yeah, and other things I've seen in comics, every now and then he can he'll see from the eyes of a bird or something. But yeah, it's one of those things well, he doesn't, right? It's the same reason Mystique shouldn't be able to turn into a bird.
Right,
but yeah. It's a nice moment. It's like a small win for Professor X.
Yeah, that is nice. He gets to have control of his power for a minute there. Help someone.
But boy, this family is just asking to be murdered.
I know, they're so nice.
The Munsons, they're just come to our house, stay the night, we'll put you up. And Logan is just constantly we can't stay. It's dangerous. No, we're gonna make potatoes. The Munsons. It's the Terminator rules. It's in the Terminator movies, every time a truck driver or somebody in a car stops and gets out and says, hey, are you okay? That person is now dead and their car is in the hands of a Terminator. But then I guess somebody has come along. It's a bunch of different messages in these movies. I guess the Terminator films aren't saying someone has come along. Terminator's saying never stop your car.
There's no happy message in Terminator. But you do get that feel that maybe being kind and opening your home isn't a good idea. But there's something about how it's presented that it doesn't really... You still feel like these are just good people who did
These people are good. Thing. Logan should have put his foot down and just we are leaving.
Yes.
Because he knows what's going to happen.
He knows... Yeah, they're just people living life. They don't know that
in the house, he's just constantly saying, this is dangerous. This is a bad idea. And Professor's like, we'll leave in the morning. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little funny too, because like it does seem like Xavier would know better, but also he's kind of got dementia, kind of deteriorating
but
a little. So
he's
maybe
always been an optimist too.
That's true.
He'll build. He's always seems kind of surprised when people are at their worst. He always expects them to be at their best. Wolverine agrees to go help. So the Munsons are played by Eric LaSalle and Elise Neal.
He's from ER.
Oh, yes, he is. He won a few awards.
That's
from
just what
ER.
I know him from. Dr. Green, I think. No, I don't remember.
Oh, Elise Neal was in Scream 2. They play Will Munson and Catherine Munson. But Will Munson is like, people turning off our water. It's this, oh my gosh, I'm so sick of seeing people like this. The people that are like, you gotta sell your land, we turned off your water, might makes right, all kinds of situation. And then I get frustrated because I hate the might makes right mentality, and then I just want Wolverine to might them into yes. I just want him to pull out his claws and show them what might makes right does to people like you. And it's so frustrating with these people that Wolverine can't. That's what it is. It's not that he's not going to, it's that he can't. And that's what makes me frustrated, that he's at this point where like we've seen these movies. Wolverine has taken down Sentinels. He's taken down he's done it. He's fought Magneto and everything. He can't take like a bigot with his pistol out, which is frustrating. Yeah. But he still like punches him in the face, which is nice.
Well, he's got the presence. Yeah. Like he doesn't need a lot to get them back down.
That's the frustration. That's more of the frustrated part, because he does have the presence, and he comes out there and he's like, "Why don't you get in your car and drive away?" But like he still has that, but he now has been like, he doesn't have all of it to back him up with that. And that's, I think that's a frustrating part just for the character as well. For him, he feels that.
I like how there's sort of like a near future apocalyptic vibe, even with this farm. Because you have this thing, I mean, you've got the automated...
With the farming robots, yeah.
And there's also something that it felt like a what's that movie? Interstellar. When the way that they're doing the crops and stuff.
Yeah.
How it's just a little... It's like there's just not...
It doesn't have the human touch anymore.
It's like we've pushed things so far that like the things that nourish us aren't really nourishing us, and... I like that kind of overall vibe.
Because he talks about what they're growing. It's all like the corn syrup to put in cereals and all this other stuff. And he's like, why do people do it if it's not good for you? It's like, I don't know. People are people. Before Logan goes off to help Will Munson, he says, Professor X is telling him, this is what a family is. This is what love is like. This is a home. Feel it, like really take it in. You have to take it in. This is what life looks like and all this stuff. So they have that moment. And then Professor X is talking. He's like, I remember it was me. I don't deserve this night. And he says, like, I can't remember a night like this is like I can't remember having such a night like this in a long time. But he remembers the terrible thing he did. And he doesn't deserve this, and it's so sad. And he's talking about, like, I think we can make it right now. And then he gets stabbed through the chest. That's so sad.
I love all of the scenes where he's in bed, like, all tucked in and everything. I love Wolverine first getting him settled, when he's, like, giving him the TV remote, and it's just this simple, real moment.
It's warmer than It's warmer than the scenes where he has to take him into the stall. Earlier at the gas stations.
That's another level of realism. I mean, it's just this.
It's like, I can do it. Don't.
I
can't do it while you watch. I'm not watching. Trust me.
But like, that's just what happens, Like, I haven't cared for a loved one with dementia or anything like that, but I know people very closely who do and who have, and it's just, you sort of imagine that it becomes something different, but it's just, they're people and you're a person and you still have the relationship that you had, but now you have to do all of these insanely intimate things and like care for them, and
Logan is not the kind of person that way. I mean, all the movies have shown us a Logan that is not the kind to want to do that. Like, he's
his responsibility, and he sees it. He sees that like, he's got to take care of this man, and he's going to, and he does it because he cares about him. And I just, I hope that it's an accurate portrayal as it seems to me, and I hope that it's cathartic for people who see it because it feels like a really real thing that we don't get to see very much of.
This house, I mean, apparently the dinner scene was pretty improvised with the conversation.
Yeah.
Mangold apparently wanted it to feel a little bit more free flowy. So you get like these warm moments where like he's like, you're talking to a former head of the school, like a man who ran a school, and talk about like Logan having to get kicked out a few times of the school. And Lara is just like eating it up. Like, one, she wants all the food, but two, she's just like eating up this like, this is something she's never seen in her life. Yeah. And certainly, and hasn't even seen Logan this way, this warm. And it's funny because like we see, like you said, like these moments where she just is doing kid things, but maybe she doesn't know how to do the kid things. Like when she's on that little rocking horse outside the gas station, she knows she likes the calming motion of this little horse, but she doesn't know how to deal with it when it's not that way anymore. And it's so funny because like
really know how to enjoy it.
Yeah, because when we see her, she's just
unnatural.
Yeah, she's just kind of staring at it and just like, this is the thing I am doing. And then like she knows when she's in the store and she's like ready to take that store owner out. But yeah, she's smiling and laughing, and they're talking about, you know, their former lives. And then Professor X gets stabbed.
And that's so, oh my gosh, the fact that he sees his face and is like, this is Logan who is doing this. And then later when Logan comes to rescue him, when he like grabs him and he just keeps saying, it wasn't me, it wasn't me, it wasn't me. It's just so,
Yeah. I don't think Professor X goes thinking that, because the last stuff he says is something like, we can still get the boat. So I think that's okay. But yes, Logan, that whole thing, like, it wasn't me, as he's carrying his body.
Oh, I can't stand it. And it has to be because he knows that he's dying, too. Because, like, he has to convince him that he isn't the person who killed him.
Yep.
Brutal.
When I first saw this movie, I thought for, like, a brief second, in the shadow and everything, I thought I thought they did bring back Liv Schreiber as Sabretooth.
The haircut.
And I think it's the sideburns too. You get those sideburns and that hairstyle, and for like the brief moment in those shadows, I'm like, oh, they got Sabretooth back in this role. So when I finally I was like, oh no, and because I'm not expecting to see like another Hugh Jackman, so like my brain just didn't connect it for that second. So I thought it was Victor for a second. And it's so funny seeing X-24, who's being played by Hugh Jackman. You realize how much makeup and aging they have done to Hugh Jackman, because like I think I was like, oh, they've aged him up a bit, but as soon as you see X-24, I'm like, oh wow, they aged him up a lot.
Yeah, but didn't they age 24 down?
You think so?
He seems artificial to me. I mean, like, part of it is probably the hair because it's weird and smooth, but it seems to me like they de-aged him a little.
All right, I didn't really think about that.
It's probably maybe a little of both.
Yeah, he's just a good-looking fella, that Hugh Jackman. Listen, I know maybe there isn't anything to feel towards it, but I do feel for X-24 during some moments in this movie when like when Lara's on his back and just stabbing at him and he's just like, Gah! Like, I kind of get the idea that he doesn't know what's happening to him, and like
he has a feel of like an animal.
Yeah. So like he's doing what he's told, and then when he's like experiencing this pain, like it's still pain, and he can't like connect it. So it's just, I kind of connect it as like a very confused animal. Yeah. So those are that's the worst thing for me, confused and sad animals, because they can't understand. They just don't understand. So
why.
when he's being like really demolished, there are moments where I'm like, oh, well, that's sad. But then also he's the guy who stabbed Professor X. And again, we see how like even at like how tiny she is, she's super deadly, because like she's taking on this X-24 by herself pretty much. She doesn't win it, but that's mainly due to size.
Yeah, and she's super fast and like she's climbing all over.
Yep. And, like, she's got her toe claw. Yeah. So she's got, you know, extra. This whole scene You said Terminator. I didn't even think about that, but like this feels like a Terminator scene. This whole house scene, just like X-24 is the T-100. Just
well, yeah, because
T-800.
it's just unstoppable.
Did I say T-100? Oh boy, I better take that out. Yeah, he feels like the Arnold Schwarzenegger, just like in there, just like nothing. And then those guys with the guns show up again, and he just lays waste to them. I mean, it feels like a horror movie with the lighting, with things on fire and dead in the music. It just, and like Lara's screaming as Logan is carrying her. It just feels like, holy crap, did we just watch like Get Out or something?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Caliban blows himself up to try to take out Donald Pierce in their truck and everything.
Does he achieve anything? Because it feels like he doesn't.
It is one of those sad deaths where it's like, I mean, I guess it slowed him down. They can't take
they
Lara.
destroyed the truck.
He destroyed their truck and some stuff. I think he was trying to kill Donald Pierce, and Pierce jumped out in time. Pierce is like really beaten up, and he has to fix his hand. I think he shouldn't have said that quippy one-liner. I think he should have just done it.
Just do it. Yeah. That's always the problem. Take the element of support.
Logan has to bury Professor X.
Oh, it's so sad.
In the middle of nowhere, which is sad. And then he's like, Lara's holding his hand, and Logan is just like, well, it's by water. It's by water! And then he walks away because he can't do it. At M, name is Terrence, on Twitter told us, I was not a fan of the Wolverine clone reveal, so the X-24 reveal, and I still don't understand how young Wolverine didn't heal after the headshot. Spoiler warnings. And then and the poor Munsons. What was the point?
Yeah. No, I'm with him on the clone. I could have done without that. Like I didn't hate it, but I don't think it was necessary really for it to be
kind of come out of nowhere, but also at the same time, that's the reason why the kids were being taken out by
Well, yeah, but like it didn't have to be him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it could have been just some unstoppable thing. It just feels like it feels a little too pointed. Like you have him fighting against himself and fighting against this part of himself and blah.
Right?
And it's like, and look, he has your face. I don't know. It just feels a little too. It's bordering on corny.
At M name is Terrence went on to continued and said, after a second viewing, I came away with a much higher opinion of it due to the Logan-Lara relationship, which is now like the rest of the movie because Professor X is gone. This is another. I mean, the same thing will happen to Logan, but it makes me sad to think that like Professor X, this guy who created the X-Men and everything, he's just buried the side of the road. It's happened. Out in the middle of nowhere. It's just a sad thing. I don't like thinking about it right now. He beats up his truck and he passes out because he fought X-24 at the house and just like he kind of put on a good show at the beginning, and then X-24 is like, okay, I've assessed the situation, and just lays waste to him. And I mean, I know what you're saying, it's him fighting about himself, but it's also just a reminder of like how old and done Logan is, that like his younger self can just be like, just tear into him and, unbeatable. And it's like, well, you've done that to a few people, haven't you, Logan? You could kind of throw in like, oh, that's what it feels like line right there as those claws are going in. Yeah, and they beat him with a truck and shoot him in the head. And so X-24 is kind of like, not dead, but out of the fight. Munson tries to kill our Logan. Because
that's a decent job.
Because X-24 killed all the Munsons. Killed the son, killed the mom, and then I said, Will Munson points the shotgun at Logan.
Oh, yeah.
And
tries to fire, but there's no bullet.
Yeah, you hear it, and there's no bullet. And that probably would, because Logan closes his eyes. He's ready.
Oh, I didn't see that.
He closes his eyes because he's expecting it, and it doesn't happen. And it's kind of like this shot would have killed Logan at this point. She takes him to a doctor, and the doctor is like such a fan. He's just so happy to meet mutants and to meet Wolverine, because he's like, there's so few of you and everything. He's like, let me help you.
I love his delivery, because he just feels like I became a doctor because I love people and I love the human body, and I want to help a mutant because I think they're so fascinating. And like he just feels like a scientist, and like I like him.
Yeah, I guess we haven't talked about this. This happens a lot in the comics, where if Wolverine loses his healing ability, maybe it hasn't happened. He lost his healing ability at one point, and the problem was his claws. Where every time he used his claws, that was a problem. But the idea that the adamantium should kill him just by being in his body. He should be dying because it's poisoning him, but his healing factor protects him. And in the comics, when Magneto pulled out his adamantium in the 90s, Logan's healing ability went crazy because it wasn't dealing with that anymore. And so it was like through the roof. It was kind of like how Cable should be even more powerful psychically, but he has to spend so much time keeping back the technovirus. So that's what this movie's going for, that like now that his healing power has slowed down, the adamantium is the thing that's really poisoning him. It's not so much just like life, it's he's got a body full of metal and he can't protect against it anymore.
Yeah, and it's interesting because when he first gets the adamantium, there's the whole thing about how like he's the only one who could have it because of his healing factor, and you just sort of think like because of the trauma of like attaching something to your skeleton. But then there have been a couple times in the movies that I've heard certain things that make it seem like it is this, it's like a heavy metal or like it's radioactive or poisoning him in some way that like adds to that.
Well, I think is really in one of the movies, Magneto says, "I could smell your adamantium a mile away." So it's so poisonous you could smell it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Logan's feeling better. He gets in the car. He's like, "We're going somewhere else. I don't know what's going to happen." And Laura just starts yelling at him in Spanish, which I think even annoyed, because now Logan doesn't know what she's saying.
Right.
And then she punches him in the face.
She's so, I love her. She's just so, she just goes for it, you know? Like she's just 100% going
when
for it.
She punches him in the face. I mean, I've said cathartic a few times. It's nice to see like just somebody like punch him and be like, "You're being stupid," and she just like gets. He looks so shocked. He's like, "No, you don't, stop hitting me." He has to say, "Stop hitting me," to Lara, who's like what, like up to his knees. I mean, she's not that short. You know, we're talking about Wolverine, and this 11-year-old punched him in the face. I love it, and she's listening to these things that he doesn't really figure. I don't know if he's supposed to understand that she's listing names. Like Richter is one of the characters, you know, she names.
Well, so, he says it later. He says like,
all right, you're with your Richter, you're with your okay. But they go and he keeps passing out because he can't drive, and they have to like when he gets there, North Dakota, right? North Dakota.
Yeah, North Dakota.
And they have to like bring him up on the rope thing, the rope gurney, and we meet all these kids on this like a fire watch kind of situation. Yeah.
I guess.
And they have like, I don't know if they call it anything. I thought it was that mutant growth hormone that you know, if you take, your powers are advanced up.
Yeah, they do say something like that when the doctor has it.
And remember that for the next movie we're talking about as well.
Okay.
Yeah, they use it in like, you know, you can't take the whole body. You can't. He says that stuff will kill you. And Richter, who seems to be the leader of these guys, Richter from the comics, who can control the Earth, says like only if you take it in like all at once. If you take it in small doses and everything. So that's helping Wolverine. And this is where I got a little hopeful. And that was a fool. That was a fool's hope.
I know. Maybe he'll get better.
Maybe he just uses this. But yeah, Logan is gonna leave now that she's there, and he tells Lara, "Bad things happen to people I care about," and Lara says, "I'll be fine then."
Yeah, I think the payoff is pretty good, but I still hate that line. I hate when people. Yes, because
wait, which line? Her line or his line?
His line.
Oh, okay. I like her line.
Her line kind of almost makes his line worth it, but I just really hate his line because I don't like when people verbalize that kind of self-hatred, because I don't think it's conscious most of the time. You know what I mean? Like I think him saying that is just too much acknowledging his vulnerability. I just don't buy him saying that.
I would buy it coming from Wolverine since he's been around so long. He's had a long time to process.
He knows that bad things happen to people he cares about. But it's just so like, I can't care about you because bad things happen to people that I care about. And it's, I don't know. I just don't, I don't like him verbalizing that emotion. So it doesn't ring true to me.
If I timeline it, if we're working off my timeline where then, you know, it's the Happy Days of Future Past ending that then leads into this future, we're dealing with a Logan that's lived his entire life, lived through the hell that was Days of Future Past, and then woke up and then lived the rest of the future. So like he's been through a lot, this guy. But that was more like, that was the Wolverine that was the first two Wolverine movies, like you said, it's the past. Like those ones were dealing with the whole like which war were you thinking of? It's like all of them. Like this Logan seems to have made peace with all that stuff. But yeah, her line like it's pretty good. She's taken over the role of cutting into Wolverine verbally now that Professor X is gone.
Well, I like that she takes that route where she just seems like an unusually resilient child, because she doesn't just like, she doesn't become like, she doesn't think it's her fault. She doesn't like take it as an indication of her worth or anything like that. Right. She just takes it as, you're a jerk and you're my dad, and so you should love me and take care of me, but you don't, and that's not my fault, that's you. You're just being stupid, and I don't like it.
I didn't read this, but Patrick Stewart was talking to Digital Spy about watching the movie, and he said, shortly after Xavier's death scene, I found myself getting very emotional, but I had to keep a hold of myself because we were sitting in the middle of a cinema. He turned and there was Hugh Jackman, and he's watching this movie next to Hugh Jackman, and Hugh Jackman was wiping away a tear. And Patrick Stewart said, I thought, damn it, the bugger's crying. Oh, let it out, Patrick. And then he says, Hugh took my hand. We held hands with the last 7 or 8 minutes of the film because there were so many things we were upset about.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
He said, we were moved by the story. We were moved by one another. We were moved by the movie. But we were also both made the decision that we were saying goodbye to our characters as well. In that sense, it was not just the deaths of those two men in the franchise, but it was also goodbye to our part in them as well. So there you go. You can imagine Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart just holding hands, wiping away tears while watching Logan.
I love it so much.
The bugger's crying. Damn it, if he's gonna cry, I'm gonna cry. Guess what? The kids leave early in the morning, give Hugh Jackman a little present of the stuff that says, don't use it all at once, and then they head off into the woods. Hilary, it's our fox forest.
It's the fox forest!
It's the fox forest.
That's not North Dakota.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, it's the fox forest, and we say that's because Fox likes to film up in Canada a lot. This was the first time it dawned on me. This is all happening like at the border of Canada, and Logan is Canadian. I did not connect that at all. Yeah, so like, we'll talk about it later, but like, I did not connect that importance, like that they're crossing over to Canada with Wolverine. I just didn't connect it until this third viewing.
Yeah, that didn't even occur to me until just this second.
The Reavers are back. They're capturing the kids. Wolverine is trying to catch up, but he can't because he's so old. He coughs this entire movie. He doesn't even think about it. There's no like, oh, I shouldn't use this. He just takes the whole bottle and into his neck. A lot of screaming, a lot of the Wolverine Berserker screaming this movie as well. But yeah, he shows up as kind of one of those, the triumphant hero returns moments because the kids are being captured. Again, Lara is like surrounded and doing her best. You see some of the mutants using their powers. Like one girl freezes a guy's arm and then breaks it off, but then she's captured by another guy. Every time they take down one person, 2 more capture them. And Lara's doing her best to do what she can. And then here comes Logan over it, Berserker yelling and lops off. And it's another one of those like, the Wolverine's back, baby! and then Lara's like jumping on his back over onto people, vaulting off of him, and they're like teamwork. It feels like a take your daughter to work day kind of situation. It just makes me so happy. It's like, this is the life you could have had.
Yeah,
but it is
with your daughter.
I was kind of like, I remember watching the movie thinking like, oh man, can I handle another like action scene like this, like bloody? But it's nice because now they're like working together, and there is something like very satisfying seeing both Lara and Logan like fighting together.
Yeah.
And when he's like, stay behind me.
Things have opened up.
Yeah, he says like, stay behind me so he can take the bullets and then she can jump over him. Love it. Xander does this whole speech and talks about how Wolverine killed his dad.
Yeah.
Because he says like, my father helped create the process of bonding your adamantium. He's like, oh yeah, I think I killed him.
Yeah, I like that moment because it seems very genuine that is not coming into play with the Doctor
Yeah.
Like any of his stuff. Like it seems like it would be like, you killed my father and I'm gonna take care of you. But
because Xander Rice kind of rolls his eyes. He's like, yes, I believe you did. I believe you did.
Like, that's not motivating him in any way. It's just like a thing that happened.
Boy, the girl that uses the pine needles, that seems like a bad way to go.
Oh my gosh. He like disintegrated.
It seems like a horrible way to go. Just pine needles inside your body and then you explode out or something? No, thank you. Yeah, where's the ice kid? He's gonna go up to Xander now because the kids are being put back into a cage. They're being put back into a cage and he tells Lara to get ready and everything, and he's having this conversation. He's like passed out. And Xander even says like, your body, it takes any more damage, you're not going to be able to heal. You're not going to come back. And it's so funny because in the conversation, so one, there's some lore being dropped here for people who care that like the reason there are no more mutants is because they developed all those sugars that we were talking about with the Munsons has been developed to stop mutants from breeding, from mutants from being born. So like there's that, and Wolverine, it's funny because Wolverine seems kind of interested but not really. He's like, oh, so that was you. It doesn't play into this situation for him. They're just talking and then he just gets shot in the head. Wolverine just shoots him in the head and he's dead. It's one of those like, we have exposition, I get it, goodbye. When that happens and Laura shows up and starts taking out the other guards, Donald Pierce is very panicky in this moment. Because I think he knows he can't control. He can't control X-24. Because there's that moment where like Xander Rice is using those chemicals to boost X-24's healing ability so that he can heal from what happened. And he's talking, and like we know how Xander feels. He doesn't care about him, but 24 seems to care about him. Yeah. Because when Pierce lets him out and says showtime, and he comes out, he sees Xander dead, and it affects 24. He's upset, even though he's like supposed to be nothing but rage. Xander's plan was to do this thing where you would make things and then you would get rid of the rage. It'd be all rage and no emotion. He still failed in the end. Yeah, because he still cared about someone. But yeah, this is definitely Donald's last chance, and it does not work out for him. I was thinking, like, they're taking out the kids take out Donald Pierce by using all their powers on him. As Wolverine's fighting X-24, I was thinking, like, too bad none of those other kids are helping him, like freezing him, and like Richter does. Yeah. Richter throws a whole car at him, which doesn't do it. That's true. So I guess that's the thing. Does that? Seems like that would do it, doesn't it? At least, stop him. He pops, he just, gets out. He, lifts it, doesn't he? I don't think that's his power. I don't know. Set. It's not like he claws his way out. Yeah, it's anyway, he's really tearing into Logan and Lara, and then he throws Logan into the log, which is a brutal way to... I definitely had to... I was like... I saw where that was going, and I was like, I'm just not gonna... During the first time I saw this movie, this is where I was like... It was hitting me. I'm like, oh, I don't want this to happen. I don't want Wolverine to die. Don't do this, movie. Stop. And it was I was just so in my head during this whole scene. I'm like, I don't want this to happen. I don't want this to happen. You know, when I saw the first trailer for Days of Future Past, I was starting to prepare myself because it had been 14 years. I was the second half of my life that movie was coming out. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to see these characters die in Days of Future, in the future scenes. And that's going to be emotional. And then when I saw it, it didn't really hit me because it's an alternate reality. You know, things are going to get fixed and stuff. Yeah. And instead, Logan did exactly what I was worried Days of Future Past was going to do to me. And I was like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Stop it, movie. Hugh Jackman was talking to Yahoo, and he said, it was always floated that Logan would possibly die. I said, let's be open, because it may be more powerful for him not to die. James Mangold was always certain of that ending, and he was right. Unlike a human character, what's most poignant for someone who is thought to be indestructible is him dying while saying, this is what it feels like. Lara uses the adamant... We haven't even said this, but Logan has an adamantium bullet, because his plan is to take Professor X out to sea with his boat so that he's safe. When Professor X dies of natural causes, Logan is going to use it on himself. Use the bullet on himself. And there was something that he got it from somewhere else. He had it earlier
in his life.
Yeah,
and then he eventually decided to use
Laura has it. She finds it, and he says, I've been keeping that as a reminder of
that's right.
of things, but honestly, I think I was planning to use it on myself. And he says, this is the only thing that can kill us. So there's a reason they can't count X-Men Origins then, because that tells us an adamantium bullet's just going to give you amnesia.
Don't get me started, Eric.
Technically, in the comics, adamantium can cut through anything but adamantium. Like, it's not that it can cut through adamantium. Adamantium is going to stop adamantium. So this movie takes some liberties with adamantium, is my problem.
I guess so.
2 thumbs down. Respect the science of adamantium. Yeah, 24's basic, stabs him through the log and is winning, and Laura shoots him in the head. And that kills him in a brutal way. And did I already read that tweet? And as we read the tweet, he didn't understand why he couldn't heal from that. I get it. The whole skull's caved in,
Yeah. And I mean, at the very least, you can wonder if it just incapacitated him for an extended period of time.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe he's not dead forever.
Like, maybe if you want to feel like he could heal from that, then you can still allow it to stop him in that moment.
Anytime you start dealing with this stuff with Wolverine's healing powers, it's always weird. Like, I've seen Wolverine heal from, like, just a skeleton, and everything comes back, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to get through this. And Laura's holding his hand and says, I don't want you to die. I don't want you to go. And says, Daddy?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe she said Daddy.
But it's one of those Anyway, I'm fine. And she's holding his hand, and she's like, I don't want you to go. He says, that's what it feels like. So I don't know if he's saying, like, this is what death feels like, but I interpret it as, this is what it feels like to be holding a hand of somebody who cares about you and feel the same thing.
I think that's the one. I think that's definitely the one. Because it's right after she says Daddy or something, and he says, so this is what it feels like. And that's what Xavier prompted for him earlier on.
Feel what it feels like.
Connecting with people and having a family. And I think that's the culmination of that moment. Like, before he dies, I think it's him being like, so this is what it feels like to have that kind of a relationship, to have someone love you,
Yep. Have you ever...
I think he's just, like, letting himself feel it in that moment before he dies.
Have you ever looked at the map of North America during the late Cretaceous? It's ridiculous. There's just this strip, like, the whole western North America is just a stripped and, like, separated from the rest of North America because it hasn't combined yet. And that whole strip, if you're on it, if you're a hadrosaur and you're on that strip, your life sucks because that whole strip is ruled by T-Rexes. Like, that's the thing. It's just T-Rexes on the...
Are you dealing with your emotions right now by diverting us to a discussion about dinosaurs?
I'm just saying, if you hatch and you find out you're a Triceratops, you're gonna be like, okay, I'm not a T-Rex, but this isn't so bad. If all of a sudden you're like, oh frick, I'm an iguanodon, oh hell.
Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right, Eric. And I'm glad you brought that into this conversation. I think it really adds a lot.
Yeah, you're just a rock star if you're a T-Rex. It's like, hey, welcome to my strip. Welcome to my.
I agree that the T-Rex had it pretty good.
He had it pretty good. But it does make me sad to think they were... It's cool and sad at the same time that the meteor hit while T-Rexes were, like, still on top. So they were like...
Don't start talking about the dinosaurs dying.
Oh, no, I did it again!
What are you doing?
Oh, gosh! I just read a dinosaur book recently, and as we were getting to the part where the asteroid's supposed to hit, I was like, maybe it won't this time. It did. Spoiler warning.
Write some dinosaur fanfic.
Yeah. They bury Logan. And yeah, this is the first time it connected with me that he's basically being buried in Canada.
Yeah, that's cool. I had not thought about that at all.
I did not connect that before. Because it was the same thing with Professor X. It was very sad to me that Logan was buried in the middle of nowhere. So far away from, the mansion, from the X-Men, from anybody he's known or cared about, and he's just in an unmarked grave. But the fact, now that I realize that he's in Canada, that's a little warmer, I guess, that he's back home.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like he's gone on this journey, and now he's coming back.
Wow. I might need.
Started.
I haven't been to a therapist in about 2 years. I might need to go back. I can't even talk about this movie right this part. She's quoting. This is where Lara doesn't really know what to say. Like she's hasn't. Everybody's always like, oh, get a Bible, somebody. But she's grown in the lab, so she quotes the best thing she knows, and it's Shane. And it's like her delivery of that line from Shane. I was like, oh wow, that's very touching.
It is, yeah.
They put up the cross.
It's like you could feel how she found the parts of it that spoke to Logan.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can feel in her delivery that she's finding that.
Because he talks to her, talking about like, I've killed a lot of people, and she's like, I've killed a lot of people too. And he's like, you're gonna have to learn to deal with that. She's like, they were all bad people. She's like, even so, like, he still imparted some of this wisdom that like, people like you and me, Lara, where this is what we do. You someday will also have the Wolverine movie where you go to Japan and learn that you're a soldier.
Well, I like it too because it talks about how she and he have killed people, and it matters even though they're what they consider bad people. But it also says something about them,
right?
That they're the kind of people that it matters to,
right?
Like there are people who kill a lot, and that's whatever. But he knows that you have to deal with it. If you're a certain kind of person, it affects you. Yeah,
even though they're bad, it will affect them. But also, they do it to protect people as well, and that's like her job now.
But I like too that he doesn't say that. He doesn't try to explain it. He doesn't try to excuse it. He doesn't try to say like, no, it's okay. You don't have to feel bad about it. He just he says, you're gonna feel bad about it. You just have to deal with it.
The thing is, like, how many movies have we seen Logan being like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to protect people. I don't want to, be this person. But Lara, if this character is the same age as the actress, so we're saying 11, if she's at 11, she seems like pretty much like set. She's like, this is what I do. I have this ability, so I'm going to protect my friends and family. She seems like she's on a much better path to handle this stuff emotionally than Logan ever was.
Well, it's because she's so young. She doesn't have the emotional capacity to deal with that. Like right now, she's just reacting.
Right,
and
sure.
Protecting herself and doing what she needs to do. But you get the impression that she's not a sociopath. She's going to grow to a certain point where she has to address that. But
before she leaves, she turns the cross sideways to make an X cross. Are you crying?
I had to.
Are you crying?
I had to really. No, I'm not crying.
Oh, you were touching your throat like somebody who's like.
Oh no! I have a scratch. Up there. I have a scratch from my cat. Unrelated. I was just going to say.
Just have a scratch.
I had to force. Stop! I'm not crying. I had to force myself to allow that moment because I found it. My initial response that I had to like wrestle down was that was stupid.
I've heard some other people, I've listened to some other podcasts and stuff where some have been like, yeah, that's a silly scene. But you know what? I like it. I mean, obviously because I'm an X-Men fan.
Let it go. Like it's just a cute little symbolic.
Well, she's an X-Men fan. That's she has the comics.
She's
so like
child.
That still like means something to her. And like this, the cross doesn't mean anything to her. In this situation, she right now her view of the world is everything she's seen plus Shane and the X-Men comics. So I get it, and it in a lot of ways, this is like the end of. It's this and Dark Phoenix are both kind of like the end of X-Men movies, but this one's more of like a real end in a lot of ways. Yeah, I guess it could see kind of like pandery or silly, but I liked it. Nonetheless.
Well, I think you make a good case. You make a good case for it. Like, if you look at it as like the filmmakers deciding to have her put the X there, then it's like that's cheesy and dumb. But like, if you really think about it, it does make sense that she would connect more with an X than with a cross. Like, she doesn't have any connection to it, so that makes sense. I buy that.
Back to A.L. Sheshar on Twitter. They said to us, I thought it perfectly ended Jackman's Wolverine in that era of movies, but then they said, about 15 minutes too long, didn't really care for the kids/future X-Men epilogue. X-23 was great. So
I didn't feel, I'm usually pretty sensitive to movies being too long. I didn't get that impression, so I don't know why that's different.
This viewing, I had to watch it in pieces. I'm fine, I'm an adult. I just chose to watch it in pieces.
Because you're so busy. Right?
I was so busy. I had other things to do. I guess there's there's probably like a scene or two where if you're feeling that, you could probably be like, well, we don't need, I think about the Munson scenes are probably feel a little bit superfluous at some moments. There's even just some scenes with them, like, we get it, it's warm. Like maybe the scene where Laura's given the MP3 player, you could probably like cut that out, or
I guess it depends. I feel like we've had this conversation before about another movie. I can't remember what it was, but I guess it depends on what kind of movie you're watching. Because
is it the Wolverine? Because in the Wolverine, they spend some time. Him and Mariko are in that like cabin by the water for a little bit.
Maybe. I don't remember.
Is it Age of Ultron's cabin scene?
I feel like I said these words before.
Yeah.
I watched this movie for the scenes like in the water tower thing.
Yeah.
Where I watch it as like moments
mm-hmm.
of human connection, and then there's some fighting
mm-hmm.
in between. And like I watch it as like that kind of thing. And so I guess I did feel even those quiet, slow moments, I felt like they all served a purpose.
Right.
But if you're watching it as an action movie, then yeah, there's obviously places that you would trim it down.
I suppose if you don't care about the kids stuff, then yes, that's where you're going to feel the lane.
But then I think you have to care about the kids stuff.
No, I know,
You care about Laura.
Yeah.
Like you have to have a future for her.
And honestly, the kids are also what tricked me into thinking maybe Logan wasn't going to die, because
he's gonna like start a new school. And
well,
it's gonna be...
maybe not a new school, but he's just gonna be this like elder states, like they're crossing the border, they're going to this place, and he's just gonna be like, all right, this is what I do. I'm gonna take care of these kids, and that's it. And they're gonna ride.
Yeah.
So like for a second, I was like, maybe he'll live, and he'll just now be the guardian of these kids, and that will be it until he dies. Nope, tricked me. They didn't trick me. I tricked myself. I let myself believe something they gave no hint at happening. Yeah, the end makes me cry. The movie makes me cry at the end. I've got issues, I guess, but even just talking about it, I obviously had to switch to dinosaur talk, and then I got sad about those stupid T-Rexes.
It's a sad movie.
It's a sad movie. I find it to be... Maybe I should envy the people who can just turn it on and then watch it and then be like, all right, gonna go live my day. Oh my gosh. But yeah, it's not, the reason I've only watched it 3 times is because it just wrecks me. I mean, there are emotional, there are movies you can watch. It's just like a one-shot kind of film like this that will be emotional at the end and have this kind of story and everything. But we're talking about this kind of movie with this kind of end, with a character and an actor playing that role that have been going for so long at this point. 17 years. I mean, we say 17 years, but there's all those gaps in between. But it just feels like this thing that's always there after a while. I remember being sad when Return of the King came out, because it was like, it felt like Lord of the Rings was going to go on forever. And that was just 3 movies for 3 years. This was, I don't even know what number movie. I can't even remember what number movie this is. But I mean, it's the 3rd Wolverine movie, and we had 5 X-Men movies prior to that. It's just one of those things that even when there's not a new movie in theaters, it still just felt like out there somewhere, Hugh Jackman is being Wolverine, and there'll be another one. And then to be able to do this kind of movie, I think that's what kind of annoys me about James Mangold's comments. That, like, it seems like he's very dismissive of superhero movies in general and everything. It's like, but one of the big reasons your movie is packing such a punch is because so much of the legwork has been done like 15 years before you sat down to write this script.
I guess I don't feel as much he's dismissing those as he is wanting to make the movie that he made.
Yeah,
and he can't make the movie that he made without
I get that.
doing it differently.
I always cringe when people, I don't know. Anyway, James Mangold made Logan and the Wolverine. So and I really like 3:10 to Yuma. So
you can feel weird about how emotional you get about this movie, but it's just what art is.
Art moves,
and everybody's not going to feel that way about this movie, because everybody brings their own stuff to any given piece of art, and this is what it's made for. Like, it's why we watch movies, it's why we listen to music. It's a good thing. I
think so. I remember talking about this with you and saying this, and you thinking like, we are very different people. Or that wasn't the exact line. It was something of that effect. I mean, how do you...
differently.
I don't know. How did you feel at the end and everything?
I didn't have the need for a consistency that would have me invest quite the same way. But I definitely, attached emotionally to these movies. I mean, that's X-Men. It's something that's important to me in general, and I enjoy them.
It's not even just the movie stuff. You just were like, oh, I'm watching a Wolverine movie. Wolverine from the comics. I've read the comics.
Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is an institution. That's something that matters. I think what else is different for me is that I spent a lot of those years assuming that it was over.
Like so every movie, like X-Men 2 came out, I was like, see you later.
Kind of.
Yeah, I mean,
there was definitely a period, like there was a point where it was like, there's not going to be any more X-Men movies, and I just dealt with that then. And then like every consecutive one, I would be like, it's not happening. It's never happening again. And so once it actually, by the time we got to Logan, I was like, it's not even really a thing
You've buried
anymore.
the X-Men franchise 5 times before Logan was even there.
Yeah, so like by the end of Logan, I'm not like, and this is the end, and this, you know what I mean? Like I had sort of emotionally processed that already. I think it was really well done, and so it's sad, but I actually didn't have much of an emotional reaction to this one, aside from just appreciating
the emotions on
how
screen.
It was done.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. I know what you're talking about. Like I feel like Hugh Jackman had been talking about like how long will he play Wolverine since like even before Last Stand came out. It just kind of felt like he was always kind of hinting at it. I guess it's not just the fact that it ends. It's the fact that the character dies is the thing.
Yeah.
So like if the character had just gone off, then there's still that hope that maybe he'll come back. But also, he got an ending that you can feel good about. Whereas this one, you can still feel good because, like, the kids are safe and everything. To know that everything's ending and that's where it is. But
the thing with him dying is that the movie itself is essentially looking into the future.
Yes.
So you can even just sort of see it as like, we have seen the point where he dies. Like we know that everyone dies, and we've seen this snapshot of him dying, but you could at any point jump back and watch his life.
Yes.
And all of that life.
And really, seen. I mean, he had basically just like, this is pretty on the nose, but he's basically been dead like to himself for a long time. And so really, it's not about death, Hilary, it's about life.
It is.
It's about living while you're alive. There were talks after this about what would happen with Lara / X-23, like Daphne Keane continuing to play the character, like doing a movie with her. We'll talk about it on the next time we cover a movie about her. People talking about maybe her joining the New Mutants cast and things.
I think it would be a waste to try to take anything from this movie.
Yeah.
Going forward with this movie as the starting point, I think would be a mistake.
It's just one of those, I mean, you said you've killed off, we're to assume you've killed off X-Men, where you've killed Logan. It's not even a future I really want to follow,
Right.
You could talk me into watching a X-Men 2099 movie easily, but I don't necessarily want to see, like, this is not, the world we saw these characters in is not a world I want to revisit. It's so bleak and depressing in ways that, like, even the depressing X-Men movies never were. So
True.
I get the appeal, and I would have liked Lara in the comics is a very, like, interesting character because of where she went, like, how she started, and then, like, the writers that kind of took over and, like, really started, like, giving her a lot more character than just sad, dark, brooding life kind of stuff. So that could have been interesting, but I think we can all just assume what it looks like. She's just going to grow up and be kind of like Wolverine, and maybe the whole cycle will start over with these mutants and everything. So, yeah, there were some of those talks, but I mean, Disney bought Fox, so that's not happening. Logan was nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. I've had this argument with people in forums and everything where somebody's like, oh, I want to watch Logan, but I haven't seen the other X-Men movies. Should I? And other people like, F no, you don't need to watch the X-Men movies. I'm like, maybe just watch like the first X-Men movie? I don't know. Do you feel...
That's a good question. I don't know.
It's
hard for me to see... I mean, having seen them all, it's hard for me to see how a newcomer would
Yeah.
view it. I kind of feel like there were lots of people who did see it
Oh,
who
for
hadn't
sure.
watched any others,
I
just
think
because it's
so.
a different kind of movie.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it seems like it would have to have some kind of appeal for those people.
I see it. I think you watch it and you see, like you said, like, you see the art of it when you come in and you just watch it by itself, and maybe you don't have, like, that years of emotion or connection, but you still see it and you're like, oh, this is a great superhero movie. It's got a real ending. The hero dies. Woo! I still argue that you should watch the other X-Men movies, but maybe you don't need to watch Logan. If I met somebody who had existed in a vacuum and hadn't seen any of them, I would just make them watch the movies in order.
Yeah, but then you run the risk of them not watching anything. Like, if they have to watch that many movies in order to get to Logan, like, maybe...
Yes, if somebody was like, I'm never watching the X-Men movies, can I still watch Logan? I would say yes. But if you had given me unsculpted clay, they'd watch all the X-Men movies.
Okay.
Technically, we were talking like we were going to cover Deadpool 2 next. I think we're going to cover New Mutants next, because production order, like the X-Men animated series, I believe that's where New Mutants goes. Mm-hmm. It goes after Logan, and there's literal scenes from Logan that are in New Mutants.
I think it makes sense to go there next.
And I think, like, that was the thing. New Mutants was supposed to come out, and then it was going to be Deadpool 2, and then in the same year it was going to be Dark Phoenix. So we were going to have these 3 movies in one year. But then New Mutants and Dark Phoenix got delayed, and then, as far as I know, New Mutants never got anything in terms of reshoots. So the movie that's out is the movie that would have come out when it was supposed to come out. So we're going to be covering New Mutants next for the movie, and we'll talk about his connections with Logan. And listen, I've done my best over the years to connect these movies' timelines and everything. I cannot figure out where New Mutants is supposed to be.
Muddy.
Our next episode, we're returning to Season 2 of the X-Men animated series with Repo Man and Externally Yours. Mm-hmm. So we saw Wolverine's death, but now we're going back to when he first got his claws in the animated series. And Externally Yours is like a Gambit solo episode. So
yes, I remember that one very well.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm Eric Mickles, or Dusk versus Tweak everywhere online. Apart from other shows on the Radio Meanwhile Network, I'm the co-host of the podcast, The All the Book Show. Hilary is Hilary. Sorry, I always do that. But you're just Hilary.
I'm Hilary.
Co-host of the previous
X-Men. I do a
X-Men.
podcast about the X-Men.
Thank you to Prophetic Music for our theme song. You can find more about the show and others like it at our network's website, radiomeanwhile.com. Please follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Previously on X. Please rate, subscribe, and share the show on iTunes, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.